Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful Calypso event today, which is entitled the Explainer Symposium. Now, I just want to say a little bit about this. My name is Meagan Sylvester, and I am a music sociologist, and I decided to partner with none other than the daughter of the Calypsonian explainer because I wanted to celebrate his life. In these times, so many persons are leaving us. And of course, one of the main things that we speak about in the Calypso fraternity is we speak about the fact that we want to get them before they go. It was sad to see the passing of Explainer, but I decided that it was very timely and fitting to have this symposium to share with persons who would have played a vital role in his life. So as you would see from the agenda, and I'm still going to mention it this morning, that we're going to be speaking about the man himself, wanting to understand who Explainer is. So we got a series of persons who would have been able to, who would have started with him to a certain extent at the start of his career, persons who would have been with him before this seminal hit of Lorraine. And of course, we have, as I mentioned, his daughter. So the first segment is going to focus on Explainer the man. We're going to be speaking to various persons who can speak to who he was as an individual. And then we're going to go on to speak to the whole concept of his music and his performance, which would, of course, entail the hits and as well as other seminal songs that some of you may or may not be aware of. Again, getting together a cadre of persons who can speak to that aspect of his life. And then finally, we're going to end up today talking about Explainer, the mentor. And many persons may not have been aware that he was a mentor to so many in the Calypso fraternity. And I felt that that also was a critical part of who he was and the contribution and legacy of Explainer. As I said earlier, I partnered together with his daughter, Stagie and Mason, because I felt that it was important for us to get buy-in and support from Stagie, who would have been, of course, his manager. And so it becomes important for us to hear what she has to say about her father, working with her father, managing her father, and all that that actually entails. All right. And so what I want to do now is that I just want some of the information is up in the chat, but I just want to, for recording purposes, just to let you know who the panelists will be today. We're going to have key designer Styler, who is a Calypsonian soca performer and recording artist out of Trinidad and Tobago. And he would have worked, of course, with Explainer for many years and is actually seen and was seen like his son, his adopted son, if you will. We then have Rondell Donowa, who is a Calypsonian and, of course, an attorney at law. And he is going to be speaking about the role of mentor, how Explainer would have been a mentor to him in many ways. Marva Newton is a cultural creator, and she, as the program indicates, she will be doing a medley of some of Explainer's songs, and that is going to be a special treat towards the end of today's proceedings. We have Frankie McIntosh, who is a music producer and arranger, and he would have worked on that hit that we all know, Lorraine. And so he's going to be telling us all about what went into behind the scenes in the engine room to get that whole production together. And indeed, some of the other ways in which he would have worked and contributed to the life of Explainer. As I mentioned, we would have his daughter speaking. And then we also have Junior Ibo Joseph, who's a music producer and arranger, would have also worked with Explainer in terms of his music production. Ralston Charles, better known as Charlie's Records in New York, is going to be speaking in his role as executive producer, and in particular, speaking to his friendship and his work on Lorraine and how that project would have been part of, the legacy again of the Explainer. We have Jumani Cox, who's a radio personality, Calypsonian, soca star, and academic in terms of his approach to being involved in media and communications. And he's going to be joining us to speak to the role of the mentor, as, in terms of his understanding of who he saw Explainer as, etc. And then we have Roderick Chucky Gordon, who's a Calypsonian, and all sorts of other things, a manager, etc. And he is going to be sharing again about the role of mentor of Explainer. And, you know, we really felt that it was fitting to get persons who didn't only start with him as, at the beginning of his career, persons who would have worked with him throughout the time, but this concept of mentorship is very important to me in particular, and I think it would be to many of you on this session here today. When we think about the Calypso art form and we think about the next generation, it becomes important to think about legacy and what are we leaving behind and what are we carrying forward. And so it was really fantastic to be aware of the fact that Explainer had that same vision that I'm talking about, and saw the need and the necessity to write for other persons, be involved in the engine room, in the musical production with other persons, and also to be that mentor in terms of the Calypso fraternity, lending his knowledge about what he would have gone through and what is important to take the art form to the next stage. As I said, my name is Meagan Sylvester, and I will be your host facilitator for today's session. And now I want to get to the first segment of today, and I want to speak to Explainer the man. And I want to start off by asking his daughter, Stagie Mason, to just start us off speaking about who her father was and what he would have meant to her as a father prior to all of this Calypso talk. Who is Explainer? In this segment, we're also going to have key designer styler speaking, and Rose St. Charles, and a little bit of Rondell Donovan also chiming in there as well. Stagie, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Meagan, for having me at this time. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the persons who have took the time off their busy schedule to be part of this symposium. All right, Alison, thank you as well. Now, anytime anybody asks me who my dad was, I will just chuckle and shake my head. And I'll tell you this. The reason being is simply because he was very a dynamic person. You can never tell exactly where he's coming at next. All right. He had the ability to just walk in a room and light up the entire place because he was a very jocular person. He will use the opportunity to bring across his point in a very jocular manner, but bet your bottom dollar, he was very, very serious about every single word that he said. All right. He was a very keen observer, a very critical thinker. He will be able to actually analyze each and every single moment, every single thing, and he was always correct. And beforehand also. All right. I would have called him the prophet because he would have prophesied things that I actually saw. Everything came to pass. Even up, I'm still seeing it happening up to today. All right. He would also never actually pass up on the time and the opportunity to teach. Well, don't talk about when it comes to his kids. All right, but I'm going to deal with that next. I'm going to deal with that last. All right, because that's a different side of him. All right. So I would say that my dad, he was a trendsetter who was never afraid to try new things. And the kids is going to actually give a test to that. Because I would say that in terms of the first raga soca, when he started out, like 1978, he actually fused the music. He fused the music with the reggae and the calypso. All right. He started there. 1978, he also did it in 1979, which is to be free, and then he came back again with them with red. All right. So he tried that, and that he actually broke the codes, everything about calypso, by actually fusing the music at that point in time. He had a little struggle, as he indicated to me. All right, but again, he went pressing on. Never matter. He come like the union leader because he liked to actually be the voice of the voiceless. And I used to tell him, I said, Daddy, how long will you go on like this? It takes a lot of energy out of you. You know what he said? Somebody has to get the message out, and cost it what it will, because that's what's his belief. He has strong belief in that. All right. So he would stand up and he would defend anyone who he would see that, you know, how I would say it. He would stand up and he was very conscious in mind and in state. All right. And for persons who would have been, they would say lesser fortunate, or persons who would find themselves who didn't have a voice for themselves, for example, like who were oppressed, the Rastafarians, etc. He would stand up and feel to himself that, okay, nobody really ain't taking them on, and I find that they have a positive contribution. I'm just giving this as an example, and I'm going to do it on their part. All right. So therefore, he was very Rasta in heart. He was very conscious, right? He wear dreads for one season because he was always a person who was changing his style. He was also a motivational speaker. So what he would have done in his spare time, he would have gone to the prisons and he would have spoken to the prisoners and so on. Because in coming up, he, in the area that where he came up in, had a lot of crime and so on. And he was able to actually brave that storm and come out successful. All right. So he would have gone to the prisons and show them, okay, ways and means and whereby they can reform themselves and to find in themselves, look into their inner selves and see exactly what talents they have and to build on it to see if that could be some sort of reformation. All right. He would have gone to schools. He had partnered with UNESCO and also NALIS and would have gone to schools and lectured to the kids and so on. All right. And and I also used to use him to represent any one of my colleagues. All right. In terms of if they call me and they said, okay, I need someone to actually come and actually, sing for somebody or something, I would use him. I would use him to represent for those who actually had no father to represent. He will go and represent like if he's the father. You never believe it or not. So I used to let him out. I used to tell him, I'm letting you out today, If somebody tell me, okay, they have a sick, I would say, Daddy, one of my friends or somebody I met, they said, okay, that they have a sick mother ailing and on the dying bed. And if you could call and they could pray with them and sing to them, he said, no problem. And that would light up his spirit because he was highly spiritual. From the time the man, even if he get behind his car, before he massed the stage, it was praise. Praise right through because he taught us that praise is the answer to everything. And you must have Jesus at the center of your life to make everything possible. All right? So he was never afraid of challenges. And he would use his platform, which is the stage, to bring across whatever message. And to him, his biggest song was the messages because he was fighting for a cause. His cause was the various challenges of the art form. And it's sad to say that in his commentaries near end, he was really worried about the art form because he told me that he said, Stagie, we have worked so hard to take it to a certain level. And, and the respect that we expect it to be, respect we expect to gain at this point in time, he finds himself that, that they have not gotten it. So I told him, I said, you did all that you could have done. So don't worry about it. The universe have a way of resetting and everything, coming back to life, coming back to fruition. So he also used to bother about those things. All right?
Stagie, I'm just interrupting you because people want to see who is Explainer's daughter. They want to see you. So I want to ask you to turn on your camera.
And I understand, Meagan, but if I turn on my camera, I will totally fall off this thing.
Okay, all right.
Right?
No problem. We understand. I just wanted to at least let you know that was a request that came in. All righty.
I humbly apologize to everyone. I'm so sorry. I would have liked that also. I tried to actually put up a pic, but for some apparent reason, it is not showing. And I recognize that it's actually wavering my internet. So I'm so sorry about that. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I apologize about that. Sorry about that though. All right. So besides being a motivational speaker, there for everyone, all right, I am going to go now to being his manager. It was, in the start, it was a bit difficult for me because at first, how that really came about is because I wanted to sing calypso when I used to go to school. And I started to write, Daddy paused me. He said, Stagie, you should come on stage. I invested a lot of time and money in you, go and learn your work first. I didn't think you're ready for this thing. So I said, not ready. I said, okay. Because I find to myself, once it's in my DNA, I find I should have the ability. She sent me to learn my work. But when I finished learning my work now, and I get the taste of money, I came back and I said, I'm finished now. She said, you're ready to sing calypso? I said, no, I no longer want to be a calypsonian. Nothing is wrong with that. Eh? I want to be your manager. He said, my manager? You think you're able with me? I said, yes, I think I'm able with you. The reason being is simply because why I felt it necessary, because he always is a pound in my head whereby you keep the business at home, right? And he actually would have told me things like, he probably was in the process of grooming me and everything, because he was going down into age and he wanted to just hold a mic and sing. He didn't want to deal with no money. He didn't want to deal with none of that, because all he wanted to do is take the time off to write, right? And I told him, yes, I'm going to do it. But in the start, it was really, really difficult because of because of his personality. He was very meticulous, right? And I had to come really, really good to represent him. So after that, I have proven myself and stuff. We went on tours and different things. And, you know, like when he got a job and stuff, I will still pass it by him. And you know what he will say? Whatever decision you make, I will go by it. Because you always trust my judgment, right? And that was a good thing. But it took me a while to develop that trust. And if anybody know Explainer, any one of these people in the panel here will tell you the little problems they had where it comes to him and that, and being meticulous, right? And to me, I felt it was a good thing that they would have accomplished something in terms of getting the opportunity of doing that, all right? But let's say, for example, because we were in business together, he was also the co-founder of Stagexenterprises, and he also told me, all right, before he died, we also registered his foundation, right? And when it's time, we would have actually in November, we would have thrown events and stuff. Rondell, Chucky, they would have sung on it before. And it's problems. Just to pick the songs, what song you have to sing. And I would tell him, I said, Daddy, remember your role here. You're the artist. I am the manager. So you need to understand exactly what I would like to see as the producer of the show. Problems again, because he finds himself. Yes, I understand, but let me just do it my way. But he was always a person like that, likes to do it his way. And I understand and I respect him for that. Right? Because he got through life with it. Because I've seen him went through a lot of fires and came out shining like gold. All right? So, you know, I allow him and stuff, and I would just sit back and I would just laugh and I would just shake my head. They talk about a man love himself. When come to dressing, that and all is another problem. All right? When come to dressing, that and all is another problem. But I would have had fun shopping for him. Because I remember when it reached the age whereby after the fat pants, because he used to go and lime in more hair pants and certain things, you know. And I would tell him, I said, Daddy, why are you going to lime in these kind of pants? Like everybody will know he likes his horse racing. To play horse, you go in a more hair pants. Remember, you have to dress on and off stage, Stagian. He was so dignified. Remember, you have to dress on and off stage, and you would never know when it's a media moment. I said, all right, I have to respect that. But then I decided, now as his manager, to change his whole life, whole structure, his whole dressing, his whole everything. Because remember, it's a package that I need to have. And also, because of evolution, the music is changing and the look and the trends changing. So I remember when I changed him from the fat pants to the slim fitted pants. Where you going with that? But when he put it on, after that, after one day, I could never bring back another fat pants again. It made it tight, it right down at the bottom. Because he feel he was just as young as all the youths and them. And that is why he was among them. They will speak about that part. All right. So it gave him the life, the vigor and everything. All right. And it was always his because he believed also in passing the baton. It must have, as Meagan rightfully said, the succession planning. And that is what he would have done. All right. So he would have spent a lot of time around them and others. All right. As a matter of fact, where designer and him is concerned, all right, he and designer sang the first collab ever had in Calypso with Ex-Meso Army. Look how long that was before collaboration even started. They started that, right? He so that was another thing that he started. He was also responsible for the so I'm telling you as it comes, right? He was also responsible for the increase in the prize money, all right, in Calypso. So because he was always a person like that. You don't like something, I will use my platform, I will sing on it. And if it is you come to attack him, be me or whatever, I sing on you. And post it what it will. He will do such things. So I'm just, because of the platform, how huge the platform is, I'm just gonna touch on certain things. All right. So I will not go too deep. And the reason being is simply because we have a book coming. All right. So I'm gonna do his bio. He also has a foundation, which will also assist with the development of the art form. He also has a website, which has a lot of information. I want to point people to it also, which is explainertt.com. All right. That you all can go and you all can look up stuff. I still have to update a lot of stuff. Since he died, I did not get the opportunity to do anything on the website, but I'm going to have it updated pretty soon with new information. He also left me because when he died, he left me songs that haven't been released as yet, and I still haven't gotten the opportunity to release them with videos also, right? and also songs in the studio to finish, where he put down his voice and told me, because every year he would have actually collaborated with a young person, right? And he told me, you know, really and truly, he told me, Jan, you see this collaboration? I want Chucky to collaborate on this thing. He told me that, but Chucky just never get the opportunity because of his busy schedule to do so, right? So I put that on a back burner. But in the past, in terms of his collaboration, he did a lot because he collaborated with Famanapi, he collaborated with Bungie Gallons, everybody would know, Maximus Dan, Jojo, a lot of them, plenty, all right? Every year he would have collaborated with a youth, Blacks, just to name a few. But Explainer as the father now, that's a different side. That's a different side of Explainer. The reason I'm going to say this is because seeing the Explainer on stage and seeing Explainer's home is two different persons. You see, when it comes to his kids, no see what I can wash with that. Best thing still sliced bread. And kids, and they will tell you, even though he was abroad, it comes as though he was here, because he could be whatever part of the world. He will call me 5 and 6 times a day to make sure everything all right. Don't back there if I eat. How I getting this, how I getting that. Every single thing, I have to keep him in detail, and he keep me up to date on every single thing. All right. He had fathered 3 kids, 2 boys and myself. 1 is now deceased. And I know for a fact that, you know, all of us would be able to say the same. And he had treated us individually because we had different personalities, but with a little touch of him. Right? So he tried his best to give us what he never had, which was the presence of a father. So he was there for everything. When he was driving and stuff, because he had stopped driving his latter because he, you know, had an issue with his sciatic nerve and stuff. So, you know, he ended up, you know, getting back to drive and stuff. But in his driving times, Daddy will drop me to work. And when I reach downstairs by 4, Daddy's there waiting already to bring me home. And when he couldn't do it, he hired a driver. So I didn't know nothing about that. I know learning how to travel and do stuff for myself. And also, he told me, the best thing you could do is to give your kids a great education and also to provide for them. So I never had to spend my money. I now start to spend my money, even though I'm gainfully employed. It made me up to his last state of consciousness, right? He was always there when he can. So, and I know, being the one who was there around him fully as the girl, he taught me a lot of things, all right? He also taught his kids how to be God-fearing and actually how to deal with now. And when I say now, you always deal with the present state, right? How it comes, you deal with it. He had invested a lot of time in us, all right, in terms of communication. I must say, he was big on communication, really, really big on communication. And he had a fantastic job of doing it. I will tell him, I will say, Daddy, yes, I'm lazy messenger, but look at the hour you're bringing messages. Or can at 2 o'clock in the morning, we will come from a show, and anytime he want to talk. Anytime either you have an idea to write a song, you wake him up, or that is the time you want to teach something. He never missed on the opportunity to teach or give us positive reinforcement. You say, the reason why I'm giving you this is because I need to arm you when I'm not here. And he did a fantastic job in doing it. That I have no problem with going out there and, you know, facing the world right at this point in time. So I was happy and feel honored to have a dad like him. I must say, he taught me everything in my adult life.
Jan, thank you. I want to thank you for, you know, starting us off and really, you know, giving a kind of, and I hope that you're able to hold up. You know, thank you for sharing about your father. So many little, you know, anecdotes that, of course, the general public wouldn't be aware of. And so it's been nice for you to really just, you know, give a retrospective of who he really is. I just want to interrupt the session. Mr. Charles, I see that your hand has been up for a while. I don't know if there's something that you wanted to ask. Wilson Charles, is there something you wanted to ask or?
No.
Okay, all righty. At this time, I want to ask key designer Styler to chime in and to give us a sense of his knowledge and understanding and experience working with Explainer the man. Designer? I think you need to unmute your mic. All right, go ahead.
Okay, greetings to everyone.
I want to see you on camera. So whenever anyone is speaking, we want to see them on camera, please. Thank you.
Okay, let me see if I could. Okay, am I in?
There you are. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I want to say greetings to everyone. Pleasant good morning. I met Explainer back in the late 70s. I was just beginning my career, and I think the first time I was singing for a little bit, and then he came to me and said he wanted to record me. And that's the first time somebody had come to me directly and say that. He was starting up his own label with Godwin Boeing. They would he had done the album with Dread and stuff, I think, already. And he was starting this label, Boex or something like that. And he came to me and said he liked my talent and he wanted to work with me. I was honored, and it never happened. The recording never happened, but we became very good friends throughout the years. I have worked on almost all of most of his recordings. I've done background vocals. We did a duet together, Christmas song back in the 80s, and but Explainer was a really good friend of mine. He was a guy full of humor, funny guy. He was a visionary with his music, and Stagie was talking about him teaching and calling me at any hour in the day. He would call me 2 o'clock in the morning too. You have an idea, or you're thinking about something, or something to do, and he was a lover of calypso, the art form, a lover of a lot of different music, and just a guy that I miss him so much. Because the last time I spoke to him, he told me he was planning his concert. He has this concert he does every year, and always upbeat, and I didn't know how ill he was. You would never know from the way he speak, but he's a guy that show me how to to be an artist and to express myself in my music, how I feel, because he did that and did it well. And I really do miss him, and I'm looking forward to all the stuff that Stagie said is coming, the book and the videos and the music, because this guy is definitely one of the guys who blazed the trail.
Keith Styler, I want to interrupt you a little bit because I see a comment in the chat. People want to see what you look like. They haven't heard from you from all this time, and they're not seeing you clearly in terms of the lighting. So I've been asked to ask you to either turn your light on or to get a better, But I mean, you can go ahead. I mean, as time goes on, because you will be in the 3 sessions. So I just wanted to let you know that at the start. I want to actually ask Mr. Charles, Ralston Charles, I want you to just chime in here to just give us a sense of Explainer the man. Tell us about your experience. Tell us about your interaction with him. Mr. Charles? You need to unmute your mic. Mr. Charles, are you hearing me? Unmute your mic. We can't hear you. Allison, are you able to help with this? I'm not too sure. Right. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, I unmute that, but you're not seeing me now, are you?
We are seeing you. And go
Okay.
right ahead and tell us about Explainer the Man.
Well, look, before I even say anything about Explainer, let me say, let's give God the glory for this day. Praise and thanks to Him for giving us the beauty of this day that we can, see and speak on the greatness of some of our great songwriter, calypsonian performer. So let's just get together and say thanks. Thank you and Explain the Data. I mean, there's so many different platforms now that we can bring about awareness to the people that does not be aware or do know some of the journey and the struggle that calypsonians underwent over the years. The great that gone, that we haven't had the platform to speak about them and the greatness of those people who they are, because we took calypso, and that so simple is something that we January, February, and we whine and we do and we jump on the head of calypso and then go on into something else and act like it was never exist. And that struggle stay with these great songwriters, the talent they had that these calypsonians have. They probably with any other culture, any other art form in the world, but because our market is so small, it's just a little dot, that most of the great songs that been sang and the people never hear them. And and these guys struggle throughout their lifetime to take care of the children or the family or themselves. And that's one of the painful process that I lived through with these guys. I really felt for them because their talent and the skills that they have is no different to great songwriters that we have here when you listen to the songs that these guys wrote. And again, the time that they have to sing this song. Every 5-6 months, they gotta come with another album. Who does that? Who go through that? When a songwriter writes songs, or an artist in the other world came up with 8 or 9 songs on an album, those things stay for like 4 or 5 years before they do another album. These guys have to do an album January and come back with another one next January. I mean, where do they get those kind of skills to do and write all these songs, to come up with all these songs? These are a lot of factors that I looked into. And again, they was not respected. Why? Because they're not selling millions. Of course, we don't have that type of number to buy our music. So if they were selling millions and making big money and driving around with nice car, living in a nice home, they would have gotten respect when they walked the street. And they was disrespected by the people because the people look at them on the same level as themselves. So they never show respect to these calypsonians. And with all those great songs that they sing, just go to waste. The radio will play 1 or 2 songs, and all the other songs are just hidden, never been heard. And we have to understand or make it clear to the unknown the struggle that Calypsonian underwent over the years trying to live as an entertainer, trying to live as a songwriter. I mean, it's extremely hard for them. And this is one, I just want to express this to the people who are listening to our conversation today. And thank God for this day that we can express all this type of what we have in us that has not come out. And we don't have a library that people go and pull a book and read about Calypsonian and the struggle or what they have been through. So these platforms are great. And I thank you for this intervention that you bring in here today.
Thanks so very much for that, Charlie. And as you're speaking about the difficulty, you know, that Calypsonians have had to go through, and, you know, just the art form itself and the struggle for the art form to get that sort of worldwide appeal. We know about the, you know, that golden age when we talk about the 50s, but then we talk about what happened thereafter when Calypso fell off, you know, and fell out of that public space as being that dominant world music. So tell us a little bit more now about Explainer. Who do you know Explainer to be? What was your interaction with him? And tell us about the man that Explainer was to you.
First, let me say this. How much of time you want to give? Because these things are not a 5 or 10 minutes
right
conversation.
Right, and I understand that, but we just want you to give a little snippet, and then we're going to discuss more as we go on throughout the morning. So just give us a little snippet of Explainer the man, so that we have a sense of your interaction with him.
Okay, now I first spot Explainer in Sparrow Young Brigade 10. That's where I spot him, and he was singing this song. If you born in Britain or in Kingston, if you are West Indian, as long as you're Grenadian or of Ascension, as you're Black, you're my brother man. Those kind of words. And when I hear that song, I said, this guy have a lot of meat in him. I mean, this is Carnival time, but listen to what this guy's saying. I never saw him before. I never heard of him that much before. But I'm saying this guy's reaching out. He's touching someone and letting them know how we should be, regardless to where you came from. As long as you're Black, he's my brother man. And I was touched by that song. And I said to myself, this is a guy that I should record. But however, his timing is off, because what they are dealing with now, they don't want to hear that kind of song. And after Carnival, they're not going to play it. So what he's in place in a position here that he's not going to get what he really should get from an audience because of the timing and the songs that he's singing. And that follows through him throughout his entire career. But this guy, Explainer, I mean, there was chemistry between the both of us. It means sometimes you connect with someone and it just works, it just flows. Whatever is in that chemistry between you and that person, it just actually lasts a lifetime. It could be a day, a week, a month, but what we had between the both of us, we had not about money, we had a real loving, working relationship between the both of us. And he was not the kind of guy that think that he should produce his producer like some guy does. He believed that looking at my resume and see what I have done over the years, he could have trusted me to make the decision that I think is good for not me or him, but for the people. Because we're not buying the record. He's not buying the record. The people is buying it. The people is listening to it. So whatever I did in his on his production, he never come in and say, well, Charlie, you shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. But his input is always great. I mean, two heads is better than one. But I'm saying this to say that the guy, I love just about everything about the guy. He has a humor. I mean, and I dealt with just about everyone that sing Calypso. I mean, I can say I have different views and different you know, everybody is different. Their personality is different. They take you different. Some come to work with you for money. Some come to work with you. Look, this guy is a good friend. He's helping me, and he's also a good person. Some people don't see it that way. He saw something in me that I saw in him that we could have worked together for a lifetime. And I'm the type of guy, I love people to joke around and make joke, and I love that. I love people that have humor in them, and he has that. He did something one time many years ago that I can never forget. This guy I went up to real quick, but I don't know. I mean, we have hours here. We can you know, converse, you know, and say things that we never had a chance to see. This guy, one time I went to a studio, had a roti. I'm hungry like hell. I went up the hill, all the way up the hill in the Shark studio. I left the rest of the roadie, went inside, take a look at the studio, see if this is a place that I want to do some recording, because I'm always about quality. If I can't put out quality record, I am not going to put it out. The music has that type of finish, that kind of quality about it. I want my music to sound no different than the American music. When you hear it on the radio and you put on the radio and you hear American music, I want to hear my music sound just like that, quality-wise. I don't give a damn what it costs. This is how my music should be. Otherwise, I'm not putting it on the market. You know, I'm not going for money. I want this thing to go somewhere. I want this thing to go as far as it can go, as the air can hear it and accept it in Grammy, wherever they can take it. That's how I want my music to be. And he loved styles, he loved nice things, clean stuff, and he loved the kind of work that I does. He always said, Charlie, one thing about you, you don't come up short. You don't come up short in when you produce a record. You don't care how much it costs in the studio. I see you go back in the studio, and I ask you sometimes, where you going to get? Where you going to look for? I am hearing something that I don't like. But he's like, well, I find it's good. I don't know why you want to go back in the studio and do it. But I'm the producer. I deal with the public. I deal with the radio. I deal with all these radio personnel and the program director. I actually have an idea, and I live in America, in the American world of music. And there's certain things that I seek to be in that music before I put it out on the market. And that's what Explainer really embraced me for. And I was saying when I was up there, I put on my road and said, let me go take a look at this studio, see what it looks like. When I came back out, I see this guy eating a roti. I wouldn't think that was nice. So I'm looking around, so where I put my roti? He started laughing. I just met him not too long ago. So I turned around and said to him, you see a roti here? He said, you want peace? It was really funny. I mean, I could never forget that. When I looked at what he did and how he did it, and he was so smooth about it, and he laughed and he make a joke about it, I said, this guy is real funny. This is my type of guy. And we went on and on and on, and we did all kinds of things. I tell you, we traveled all over. We went to England. We went to the West Coast, myself and him and Blue Boy. I traveled with them to make sure they were treated right in the outer world. I left my business. I said, look, I'm going to go with you guys, because I know sometimes these promoters, they don't do the right thing. And just hiring you and they have to pay you is not professional. You should have someone to collect that money and pass it on to you. Show you the contract, what it is. I'm going to go on the road with you guys. I went on the road with these. I'll tell you, I wish I could do it again. It was such a great moment to be with these guys and to spend days and nights with them in the hotel and get in their mind what they want to do, how they want to do it, and all this different kind of stuff that I did and I spent with him. One time I said,
Charlie,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we're just looking at time, and that was a great story, that roti story. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. We're almost towards the end of this segment, and I wanted to actually give Stagie the opportunity to chime back in. And this is because Charlie actually just mentioned Blue Boy. And it becomes important to think about the earlier part of Explainer's career, where we can talk about the impact of persons like Valentino, Brother Mudada, Gypsy, and Blue Boy, and the way in which they would have interacted with him. Stagie, and I don't know, because they are not here this morning, I want to let the panelists know, and the guests as well, that we did reach out to Gypsy in particular, because he would have spent, a lot of time in the early days with Explainer. He indicated to me, however, that he is in Mayaru. And for those of you who may or may not be aware, there tends to be a challenge with Wi-Fi in that area. So Gypsy says to bring greetings on his behalf, but that he didn't think that he would have either the bandwidth or the Wi-Fi connection to be able to participate in today's proceedings. So Stagie, I don't know if you want to chime back in and just give us a little sense about your father in those 1970 days, from what he would have shared with you. Stagie, are you there? Yeah.
Sure. I'm on now, Meagan. Thank you so kindly. All right. So Daddy, back in the, those days, as he would have informed me, when he had just started, he was the Mighty Coconut. After that, he went to the Mighty Spartan, and he went on Holly Bertoli show, and Holly Bertoli said, Mighty Spartan, where did you get that name from? But he believed to himself that he was always sharp and getting through any single thing, so he wanted that name. He, in the earlier stage, right, he used to work at public transport, and this is how he met Valentino and they, right? He used to work at public transport as a welder. And he felt to himself, every evening he go in and he hearing these guys, them singing calypso and stuff. And because of his humble beginnings, he always wanted to, he told me that he wanted to fly on airplanes and have people respect him and his face showing in the papers and everything. And all of that he have accomplished, huh? And fly for free too, he said, in a very brave way, he said that. And he said to himself that, he no longer want to do this work. So he wanted to go and sing calypso. So what he would have done is when he go to work, tie his hand under the bus and have his apprentice knocking the bottom of the bus and rehearsing him for the song that he has to go to audition with. And he would have gone and he would have lined with Valentino and they. So he went to the audition, he sang at the audition, and the late Mighty Kitchener saw him. And he told him that, but you could sing. He said, yes, and I want to sing here. All the time he was a teenager. And he said, you want to sing here? He said, yes. So they asked him, what is your name? He said, the Mighty Spartan. So it was a whole joke for all of them. They said, the Mighty Spartan. They said, no, that doesn't sound good like a calypso. That doesn't sound like a calypsonian name. But in his time of, spending time with them and stuff, he was always explaining everything. So Valentino is the person who gave him his name and say, you know what? We will call you Explainer because you always have a plaster paso and you're always explaining everything. Valentino was always the one who taught him how to write calypso because Kitchener told them, don't give him the song, teach him how to write. Valentino was the person, he told me, that taught him how to write calypso, right? So back then, Kitchener took him home by him and he was living by Kitchener. So he went to my grandmother and he told him, okay, I'm taking your son because he told me he wants to sing calypso and I think that he needs some training, right? He has a very good voice, but he still needs to know the craft, the art of calypso. So Kitchener took him and it was himself, Stalin and Valentino was living there at that point in time. Budada used to visit and stuff. So, he was in training. And with that, he learned the craft, but he also was the one who was actually different and always want to try new things, want to change a lot of things. At first, they didn't like his dressing, like Stalin and them would have told him, you dressing like a Yankee boy. Calypsonians dressing dashiki. He said, dashiki, I had to smell sweet and look right. You understand me? Even though he was black conscious, but he never allowed his clothes to speak for himself. He liked to look nice. He liked to look sharp, right? And at one point in time, I told him, he told me, he said his mother had a challenge when he made the decision to go and sing calypso and he left a good paying job that, he would have gotten his benefits and stuff. And she stopped speaking to him and stuff. And she said, you going into that job? That job is not really for, people who in a good walk of life. He said, that is what I want to do. And she kept away from him. And when he told me when he was singing in Parliament, the Texan, it used to have calypso in the square at that point in time, and real people, and he had the whole place swaying. He literally saw her with her mouth open and hands by her mouth and was really surprised that was her son on the stage. And that is the only time that she had embraced him then. So I'm going to talk now about Blue Boy. He told me Blue Boy came to town with the song, the same Soca Baptist, and he came to him and he said that he wanted to sell the song because he lives in Point and he needed money to go back home. He gave him the money to go back home and he said, listen, if you're so good to write this song, then I think with your personality, you could sing it. He said he gave him the money and Blue Boy left. And the following year, he told me when he went to America, Charlie told him, Explainer boy, you know, everything in that point in time, everybody want to get a road match. You can't get a road match to say, no, here in a man, you say blue man. You say, asking Charlie, who is this blue man? And then ask him blue boy and say, blue boy, you can't remember me? And then blue boy, you know, informed them of what took place in the past. That didn't stop there. Because blue boy just came out, he took blue boy and took blue boy home in his house. Even though he used to spend most of the time in America, and he told my stepmother back then, give him anything you want, give him food, give him housing, do everything, make sure that he's comfortable, because that is my colleague. And he left and he went his way. And Blue Boy would always speak about this thing. He also went and he told me he went by Barnes and Nobles and he gave him a book and he told him, I left school in standard 2, but I was self-taught and reading makes a ready mind. And he gave him a Rogers Thesaurus and told him to learn words in terms of, you know, how to do stuff, right? And when you have to interview and these different things. So that's Blue Boy. With Mudada, well, they had a lot of fun times and so on in terms of the tent. And, you know, by Mudada just visiting nearby kitchen and so on. So, you know, they had a little laughter and stuff. But the Calypsonians and so on that he really spent the most time with, it would have been Gypsy. In his first, because the first time that he sang in was the Southern Brigade. He started there with Gypsy. And they were the first teenagers that actually made it to the finals where it was an issue. And that is why when the time came, when they had Marsha Montano and Natasha Wilson, and they had an issue with them performing in the finals, they stood up for them. All right, so he has a lot of history with that. And I see him repeat it again when he came with Aaron Duncan, because he just loved young people. You know why? Because when he started, he was a teenager and he got a break as a young person. So he felt that, you know, it's his opportunity now to do the same, to give back that blessing to them. All right, Meagan? So that's it.
So thank you so very much, Stagie, for just telling us a little bit about the pre-1970 days, because I mean, a lot of people may not have been aware that there would have been that history about him starting in the Southern Tent, you know, and that's important to understand about who he was and the contribution that he made. Folks, according to the schedule that we have planned, we're supposed to have a break now, but I wanted to give the opportunity for a few quick questions, if anybody had any questions, so that we could just have, you know, about 5 minutes, and then we can go to a break and resume with the next session, which is to focus on his music. So do we have any questions? Anything anybody wants to ask? I just want to say that Marshall Montano has just joined us. Marshall called me actually yesterday, I believe it was, to say, Meagan, I want to be a part of this, and I want to get on the stage and to speak to her about, you know, my interaction with the Explainer, and, you know, so Marshall, I just want to say welcome. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if you want to chime in and say anything at this point.
Morning, everybody. Such an honor to be amongst such greats. I see Mr. Ralston Charles. I see Frankie McIntosh. People I've had the opportunity to work with, Stagie, and you know, I want to thank you guys for doing this. Explainer was a really interesting icon, and definitely somebody who, you know, inspired who I am and what I do. So I just really wanted to listen in. You know, I never had the opportunity to hear a lot of these stories. I kind of jumped in when Charlie was talking. I missed the Roti story, and I missed the point Charlie was making, but I think I gathered his experience with these guys on the road. And you know, I myself had experience with Explainer when I was singing in Spectacular Tent, close by, dressing room interactions, which were great. But it's always about his work, always about his sound, always about his music. And I think Charlie mentioned something about that quality of sound. And, you know, when you work with people like Frankie and, you know, working out there with Straker and Charlie and all those guys who are really doing a lot to improve the music to help these Calypsonians, I think it's critical to look back on their works. So I'm really pleased to listen to what you guys have to say. When Stagie was just talking about, it's so funny, I was late because I was working on a Black Power paper as I'm writing about the Black Power Revolution and about calypsos and the role that certain songs played and the points of views. And, you know, I was just in the conversation about the dashiki and the Afro. And Stagie just talk about the dashiki and the Afro and that Black identity and what it was for Calypsonians back in the day. And I spoke to Stagie at length yesterday, and she was talking about, Explainer's consciousness and spirituality. And I think a lot of us don't know a lot about, and that would be a real nice, thing to hear. And in school, in class in UTT right now, they always bring up Explainer about these Rasta conscious songs that he had, but he was not Ras. And Stagie and I was saying he was not Ras in dreads, but he was Ras in heart. And he was always standing up for the underprivileged, or those who are oppressed. So I feel like that is a part of him that we didn't really know, because we know Party, Lauren, Ras Mas, all these things. So it'll be nice to just sit back and listen. Thank you so much.
All right, so thank you very much, Marshall Montano. So folks, I want to take a few minutes. We're just going to take a 5 minutes break, and then we're going to come back. All right? Okay, so see you on the other side. Okay, thank you everyone for that wonderful first session. And I just want to welcome you back to the second session today, where we're going to be talking about Explainer, the Calypsonian, and the performer. Now, in this particular session, I want to focus on, of course, his hits and other songs that a lot of us may not be aware of. And so I'm going to invite persons like Frankie McIntosh, of course, Ralston Charles will come back in and speak about his interaction. Junior Ibo Joseph is going to be speaking, and as well, Keith Designer Styler. Mr. Franklin McIntosh, I want to ask you to chime in here and tell us a little bit about working with the Explainer, and of course, the role that you played in terms of the hit, Lorraine.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I feel so privileged to have this opportunity to chat about the Explainer with others who knew him and worked with him. As you've pointed out, Meagan, I'm a musician by profession, and arranging is part of my skill set. And I've arranged several albums for Explainer. Most, if not all, were produced by Ralston Charles. Some of the songs include Rasta Chick, Celebration, His Horse, what else? Heroes, that was one. And of course, Lauren. And as a footnote to that title, notice I said Lauren, is that when Explainer first brought the song to me, it was not Lorraine, this is Lauren, and he had that on a sheet of paper. I think it was about song number 9. He had a list of songs. And when he sang Lauren. I don't know at what point it got changed to Lorraine, but just a historical note, might not be of much significance, but I just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, and that is a critical point, because I have seen and I've heard people say Lauren and Lorraine. Yes, so that is very important, very important. Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's what he wrote and that's what he sang in my basement. I should mention this soon to be released book which I co-authored with Professor Ray Allen. He's the chairman at Brooklyn College's music department, and the title is Art of the Soca Arranger. And I think it's in order to mention that book here, because there's a section devoted to Explainer. And it should Mississippi Books, undergoing the process. They had to go to the readers and this and that. So back to Explainer. I first saw him perform in Toronto. I think it was 1980, 1981, or something like that. The year of Ras Mas, big hit, And at the time, he represented, if not ushered in, a younger breed of Calypsonians, like a younger breed to the Mighty Sparrow and so on. But I was first introduced to Explainer, personally, by Ralston Charlie, who hired me to arrange my first Explainer album. I don't even recall what the title was, because there were so many albums after that. But I knew I was working with a major artist, because I'd heard his work with Godwin Bowen, and the album with Strings, Not Me and the Monarchy, and so on. But, okay. Now, the modus operandi, between Explainer and I, as far as arranging goes, the arranging process is that you'd come to my basement where I had an acoustic piano. There wasn't any computer, logic, software, drum machine back in those days. Just pencil paper, an eraser, an acoustic piano. And we'd chat about anything for a while, you know, just the music business, personal stories, matters of identity and whatever. And like most of the younger Calypsonians in the 80s, you know, there was that desire on Explainer's part to appeal to a wider audience, you know, a wider audience than just the immediate Caribbean. But ironically, the year that he brought Lauren to me, the song which came closest to achieving that goal, it was last on the list. And when he got to that one, because he sang the others first, he got to that one, he said to me, I don't bother that, man. That's an SH song, you know. But I have to sing it anyway, you know, so I urge him to sing it. And within the first few measures, it occurred to me, wait a minute, that's the album song. That's Explainer, you had to be crazy. You mean you ain't doing that song? So I wrote a bass line on the spot, boom, 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 or whatever it was. And I had him sing while I was playing that line on the piano. And right away, his demeanor and his attitude, you know, changed. You know, Explainer had a way he would smile. It'd start off at the corner of his mouth, and it would turn into a chuckle. And then it would develop into a raucous laugh, and you can see all his teeth. So that happened. And one thing about Explainer, I mean, as Charlie said, Explainer trusted Charlie as a producer, and Explainer trusted me as a musician and as an arranger, and I respected him as an artist. So I wrote the opening horn line and other parts like later, but we recorded it at Platinum Factory studio on Fulton Street. I think John Evans might have been the engineer. Charlie could verify that. But it was a session full of joy and great spirits with Charlie, Lance, Possum, Charlie, you know who I'm talking about, and the rest of the posse dancing in the control room while we were doing the tracks in the, you know, in the studio itself. I should say it's always a pleasant experience working with Charlie. You know, Explainer and the supporting musicians, with Marcelino and bass, Everlins and trumpets, Stanton Davis, Eddie Qualis, Dennis Wilkinson, who else? It was like a party. It wasn't work, although we got paid for it. Charlie agreed to pay, once Charlie agreed to pay US dollars, there was money in the bank. As a man who knew the business, honest, you know, I really enjoyed working with Charlie and other producers were like Straker. Anyway, back to the studio. You know, there's certain studio stories which the average listener would not be aware of, would not have been privy to. And I'll give you an example. We have a recording date at Platinum Factory Studio, right? So musicians show up. Explainer is there early enough to greet everybody. He, in a gentlemanly way, he shakes everybody's hand and we greet him, turn to greet him, we get into the studio. But I get into the studio and I sit at the grand piano and I notice my hand slipping off the keys. I say, wait a minute, what happened in here? Then the bass player, the guitar, the guitarist, the engineer, and ultimately Charlie himself start asking, well, how do I get oil in my hands? It turns out Explainer was the culprit. He had oiled his hands with a good luck oil before shaking ours. And so everyone is complaining and Explainer's in the corner with that mischievous smile, you know? And I just thought the whole thing was funny. I mean, oil for anointing, I mean, is prevalent in so many religions. And I thought Explainer's use of it was as valid as any other, you know. Of course, not everyone shared my view, but I wondered what's the difference between Explainer's oil and the oil of the Christian churches. Anyway, let's not get into that. There was another time when he oiled the piano keys. On a subsequent session at the studio, we had one explainer, okay, no oil. And he agreed, okay, you know, hands oil free. So we go in the studio, but when everybody got in, everybody still have oil in the hand, and we're wondering how that happened. Nobody shook explainer hand. Well, it turns out that he had oiled the doorknob. So, look, I mean, I could go on, but no, we have limited time here. Let me just say on a personal note, from the moment I met Winston Henry, he became a friend for life, you know. He was someone who could be telling a hilariously funny joke, but yet keep a serious face, you know. And he, you know, and then you see him start to smile, and he was an artist who showed appreciation for and had confidence, you know, in my work. If he believed in you, he trusted you, like Charlie said. He trusted Charlie as a producer. He trusted me as an arranger. And I really enjoyed working with Explainer. He's one of the, I want to say a few because I did enjoy working with several others, Becca, Tamin, Soso, Duke, Rhodes, whomever, Marshall, you know. Even after he moved, he was like kind of based in Trinidad, and trips to New York, he'd always, you know, contact me. If not personally, then, you know, through a mutual friend of ours, Keith Brooks. You may ask, okay, what did Explainer bring to Calypso? You know, sometimes people ask, you know, what do you think Kitchener brought to Calypso, Sparrow or Soso or whomever? And I would say, well, it might seem obvious, but he brought himself. He brought to the table his personality, his artistry, his charisma on stage. And speaking about the stage, you know, this is just a personal opinion. If we consider Sparrow off stage is Sparrow on stage. But I always got the sense that Explainer was by nature a bit shy or reserved. There's always that part of him, you know, introverted might not be the correct word, but something along that line. And that on his onstage self was a sort of persona, you know, for those that he had to entertain. He's always a thinking person. You know, he always seemed, you know, to have really deep thoughts. He had a distinctive voice and manner of delivery. This is true of many other Calypsonians, but, you know, when you heard Explainer, you know, Explainer's voice, you know, that's Explainer. He covered a variety of topical areas. I mean, political, like Chambers, you know, if you choose, we can follow you. He has humorous songs, songs for competition. He had songs for partying, a song called Celebration. I'd written the melody to that and he put lyrics to it. Songs about the human condition. You know, songs about the Rastas, the plight to the poor. There's one song that I particularly liked, you know, regarding the poor and downtrodden and all that. It had a line that went, why you sitting down there? And he was admonishing Black youth for sitting at the corner, not doing many things, that they should go to school, you know, get a skill. You know, that was a strong message and very relevant at the time, as it is, you know, now. To me, his style was reminiscent of Black American gospel singing, in the way he would scoop up the notes and fall off. You know, that's an African device. You find it in gospel, a lot of Black American gospel. And it's not surprising because I believe the Explainer was in tune with local, you know, African religions, maybe Yoruba, Shango, or whatever. I mean, that's my guess, you know. And therefore familiar with their modes of singing, which bear a lot in common to, you know, Black American singing. And then again, that goes back to African traditions. So the relationship between art and religion is present in so many cultures. So this connection of the Calypsonian with African religions, I find politically fascinating when you consider, I mean, it has been hundreds of years since our ancestors were removed from Africa, but that tradition still survives, you know. The harmony might be European, but the rhythm, melodic and otherwise, reveals its African origins. I mean, Western music has been guided by Christianity, you know, the Trinity, you know, the Triad and all that. But anyway, as yeah, I'm going too long.
No, I just want to say thank you. I mean, you've really given us much more than we had hoped for in this particular segment. But thank you so very much, because I did want to sort of circle back to ask you about working with Explainer with the other songs. And then you did speak about them in a little way. So I just want to give Rosa and Charles a little opportunity at this time to just speak about working with this particular hit, Lorraine. Charlie, are you there? Could you just give us a snapshot of that, please? Thank you. Need to unmute your mic. We can't hear you, Charlie. Unmute your mic. And I'm not hearing Charlie, but as Charlie is trying to get in, I just want to say welcome to former President Anthony Carmona, who joined us. Well, I just saw him. Thank you for joining us. Yes, thank you. It's good to have you here. I reached out to you. I wanted you to be a speaker, but thank you for being here. I really am glad that you got my message this morning and that you are here. It's good to see you.
yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if, in fact, given how the program is going, if I could say anything at this moment, you know, because I'm on the road and I pulled aside in a car park here because I saw Marshall, you know, another dear friend of mine, you know, from deep south, you know, expressing sentiments I agree with, you know, but I don't want to in any way traverse into your program, and I don't know, is it that I can speak now for a few minutes? Is it?
Well, yes, go ahead for a few minutes. Charlie, while you try to just sort out your mic issues, former President Carmona, just go ahead and just tell us a little bit about your relationship with the Explainer.
Well, I can tell you, in fact, it is really weird that our relationship really was built in a situation that had nothing to do with Calypso. At the time in question, I was the Assistant Director of Public Prosecution, and I was in this very, very important matter prosecuting in the High Court. And the particular trial, in fact, lasted about 10 weeks. So it was followed assiduously by everyone because it was a very, very serious matter. And I saw Explainer in the court, you know. And I remember talking with him and saying, well, Explainer, what are you doing here, boy? You know? He said, well, I know the man that charged for the offense, and I know him a long, long time, you know, he's my friend. So I said, let me come to court to see what's going on and all that, you know. And then subsequently, of course, the trial ended. His friend was found guilty. And he met me outside and he says, I hope you're feeling bad about it, you know, because you have your job to do. And I admire the fact that you were fair, and that is what matters at the end of the day, you know. And I told him, I said, you know, one thing I admire about you is that I mean, I've heard about it, but you're not a fair weather friend, you know. You don't support your friends in times of good times, but all times, you know. And after that, in fact, of course, we would meet very often, and we would talk about the trials and tribulations of the young men in Trinidad and Tobago, you know, because at the time, in fact, as a judge, I was talking a lot about the man-child in crisis. And I felt that Explainer was one of those persons who was trying to reach out to our young people to give them a sense of direction in terms of what was required. And not only that, he's very strong in the context of social consciousness. I think one thing I can tell you, and Marshall could relate to that, one thing that that brought me close to him too was his deep-seated philosophy that was grounded in social consciousness and awareness. Because I'm from Kaisobaby, and I'm always proud to tell people I'm from Kaisobaby, and that we are the seat of social transformation and social revolution in Trinidad and Tobago, you know. I like to buff my gum about my Kaisobaby, you know. you know. And I could relate to Explainer because he saw in our society, you know, the need for revolutionary change, and he attempted to do so through song. You know, I felt time and time again, you know, people in authority patronized him because he was dead serious about the need to raise concerns about how our young people were dying. Because I remember him and I talking, and I said, you know, every time, in fact, I see a body in a drain, then the blood crawl. And I say, anytime my blood stop crawling, I will stop practicing criminal law. I say, because die somebody's son, die somebody, brother, father. And I cannot handle how the authorities just trivializing life by saying it gang-related or drug-related. But I somebody. And he and I would speak at length about it, you know, in terms of what is required. And of course, he was very, very adamant about drawing the connection between delinquency and parenting, more particularly the absentee father. Because I always remember that song when his son asked him, mommy, about where the father, where the daddy. He said he have the daddy in the army in Germany, you know. And that reflected in my mind a very deep-hearted and sincere concern for the man at ground zero. You know, when he talk about Ras Mas, you know, he was about peace. When he talk about, for example, it had too much bobo in the party, he was about peace. And he tried to engage that in a way that to make a difference. You know, so I mean, it was really, this is why, for example, I know people talk a lot about Lorraine, you know, but I personally felt he made greater calypsos than Lorraine. Lorraine was a nice party song. Yes, Lorraine, in fact, reached high on the British charts. And I say, in fact, Explainer didn't need European affirmation for his music. We needed to affirm his music in real terms because he did far greater songs. You know, for example, you're talking about in Parliament to account to the people. That you need to remember that you are the servants of the people and the people are not your servants. And that is what has become, and he was very concerned about, that is how things were being perceived, that we are the servants of the politicians. And there's something fundamentally wrong with that. You Explainer in fan at ground zero, who felt he didn't have a voice. He was about giving the man at ground zero a voice, and a voice that was consistent, not occasional, not selective, a voice that was basically telling you, in fact, for example, enough is enough. So we've lost a great son in Explainer. as I refer to him as a philosopher king. You know, he like Stalin, like Shadow, like De Fausto, like Brigo, you know. And I remember, for example, you know, speaking at all of their funerals, and there was one common denominator, that profound need and desire to raise the social consciousness of our people, to tell them that you are somebody, man. You're not a statistic. You are somebody. And,
Right.
and that, to my mind, is something that resonated a lot. Think about Explainer. So I just thought I will basically, these are the few sentiments I have, you know, that I fully endorse what Marshall said and what Mr. Charles is saying, what everyone is saying about Explainer, you know. And man, he did us proud. He did us proud.
So thank you so very much, former President Anthony Carmona, for just chiming in as you were driving and sitting in your car on the spot, you know, live. So we thank you so very much for that. All right. All right. So now, folks, we want to give Mr. Charles an opportunity to speak. Mr. Charles, your mic was off before. I don't know if you can put on your mic now as you just give us a little bit about working with the Explainer for the hits that you work with him on. Can you, Alison, I don't know if you can assist with the mic. I don't know from your end. Yeah. Is he on? Okay. All right. We don't want to lose any time. So if Mr. Charles is having a problem with his mic, we want to go to Keith, designer styler, to just speak about the work that he would have done with Explainer, the collaborations and the making of music. Keith, designer styler, go ahead.
Yes, I'm hearing all this stuff about Explainer, just bringing back all the memories we had in the studio and working live with him. Like I said before, I worked on most of Explainer recordings in the United States with Charlie's Records. And it was always a pleasure. I mean, I think I was in the studio with that oil thing. This guy was so funny, man. You know, and yeah, that book about him, that Stagie I'm doing, is gonna be, she had to put all this stuff in it. But working with him was a pleasure. It opened my eyes to how, you know, to express yourself as an artist. Don't be afraid. Don't hold back nothing. You know, just give it all. I sang background on Lauren. Along with Charmaine Yates and probably Glenda and George Victory, I believe. Janet Arlene probably was on it too. Because we were doing all the sessions at the time at Charlie's Records. And it was always a beautiful thing with Explainer. The energy was always, like Frankie said, was always a party atmosphere in the studio, you know, a lot of jokes. Explainer is a guy with a high sense of humor. And the collaboration with him and I, with Home for Christmas, he had this song, I think Explainer was a guy would come up with stuff, you know, you having a conversation with him and he had this idea, and I think he got the idea like in the lobby at a Ralston recording. And he went up and he put on his voice, and I came by and he said, you know what, let's do this song together. And we did it. We did Xmas or Christmas or Army. And, you know, it was a joy working with him with every project. You know, I worked with him live. We actually were in Grenada in '83 before they assassinated Bishop. Bishop came to our show. He brought us there. The government, the movement brought us there to do some cultural exchange in Grenada. And Super Blue, Explainer, and myself, along with Roy Cape and the All Stars. And we did about 4 or 5 shows. And Prime Minister Bishop came and met us and stuff. And real cool guy, you know, down to earth, came and met us in the in our hotel and stuff, and before some of the shows, and it was really nice. And I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, but then we came back to Trinidad, and in October this thing happened. So we were there. Explainer took me there. He was like my father on that trip. You know, he make sure I got paid. He came, tell my parents, you know, he would take good care of me on the road and stuff like that. And you know, you always been that kind of guy. You know, you call me, find out how I'm doing. You know, I spoke to him probably about 2 weeks before he passed. And we had, you know, our conversations. He tell me, you know, looking forward to his concert coming up in, I think he does it in November. And, you know, he had all these plans, you know, he had all this stuff going on, you know. There's a guy that I would never forget. I miss him a lot because, you know, he would call me anytime. You know, he'd call me anytime. 5 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, he would call and we would chat for hours. You know, and I really do miss him.
Okay, so thank you so very much, Key Designer Styler, for sharing that and for speaking about the background vocalist accompaniment on Explainer's records, because sometimes when we speak about the Calypso art form, we forget the whole aspect of the call and response and how the background vocalist plays such an important and critical part in the making of the song. I want to give Junior Ibo Joseph the opportunity now to speak about his relationship with Explainer in terms of working on his music. Junior Ibo Joseph, go ahead.
Yes, good day.
Go ahead.
All right, good day. I am Junior Joseph, for who may not know, musical producer, arranger, and I've worked with Explainer in the past. We have had some seasons together, maybe about 4 or 5 years. And it was a pleasure working with Explainer. You know, hearing some of these, you know, hearing some of you guys talking about him is just taking me back and you know, just bringing back memories in that sense then. Yeah. And Explainer, he was a great guy. I could attest to that, you know. I could remember in my early time, well, I started learning music from an old age, I should say. From at 21, I started learning to play the piano. So at that time, he was out already. But in that time, in my journey as a Rastafarian, you know, I could remember, you know, you always like the Bob Marley and the Peter Tosh and that. And in Trinidad, we had Stalin and Brother Valentino. And I say, but this Explainer, but this man real conscious. When you hear some of the songs that he sang, you know, I always see him as one of the conscious people who spreading the message of Black people too. The things that we supposed to know, the consciousness where we supposed to be. You know, and I always saw him as one of those. And then in my later time, you know, after growing and becoming a producer and seeing when he came and him calling me to work with me, that was such a great thing for me because I had always liked his music. I used to follow him, you know, listen to all his stuff because I used to sew too. I was a tailor before doing music full time. And, you know, well, as a tailor, you always by the radio. You know, your entertainment is listening to the radio. And I could always remember listening to all his songs, you know, and he was very popular at that time. And, you know, it was great. And some of the songs that I did with him, I did a remake with him, with Lorraine. You know, he you know, after we worked for some seasons, he told me he wanted to do over Lauren and he wanted me to get to work, to hook him up with Bungie Garland. So I hooked it up for him to work with to get Bungie to come in and do it with him. And then I don't know if it was the year before, the year after, he wanted to do the Potopo, the all-inclusive. He asked me to get Maximus Dan to work with him because I had done over the Soca train with Maximus Dan also. And he wanted to get Maximus Dan. I also hooked up that session too and get him to, got them together and did the session. And it was nice, it was nice working. We did some other songs, Park It, and some of the songs that he did before that he wanted to do over with a, updated style. And we did some of them, I think was the Table Turning was one of them. I can't remember all of them offhand, but it was great working with him. And, he's a family man. And just like how designer said and Mr. McIntosh said, once you're working with Explainer, expect a call from him anytime. Anytime. It could be in the morning, early morning, late night. Sometimes you hear your phone ring and you don't line down. You have to say, that is Explainer. Well, your wife can't get her out because Explainer is family in that kind of sense then. Yeah, and he was great. It was nice working with him. And hearing of his passing, it was sad that I wasn't there, but because I keep looking out for what was the arrangement. I had already planned and told my wife, all right, this is one that we will be attending. And then it just happened that we seen it going on while we in San Fernando. So now we're a little sad, but it was cool still. And that was my experience with Explainer. It was great. It was nice. He was a good brother. And like you say, he was a father. I know about the thing with the grease hands, Mr. McIntosh. I know about that one. And then when he shaking your hand, he have a way he touch in the back of your hand kind of way. I experienced that too. Yeah. And so all these things they just take me back and make me remember, yeah, boy, it was really that. So, I wouldn't say much because it was great too to have people just coming in to talk and share their views too, so I wouldn't stay too long. And that was my experience. And it was great working with him and great to have known him. Yes, that was me, an Explainer. Thank you.
Thanks so very much, Junior Ibo Joseph. I really appreciate it. Folks, I really want to give Swagger Don the opportunity to come in at this time to speak about Explainer's music and how he has made a decision to do some remakes. Swagger Don, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes. So can you put on your camera? Is it possible so we can see you?
Sure. I know
that. But of course, you have to tell us who you are. You have to tell us who you are. Yeah, explain and etc. Go ahead.
All right, I'll put on the video in a second, but I am also from Trinidad, by the way. I am a Deep South man as well. Wow, so painful.
Okay.
He was a very, very, very good friend and brother. I mean, the distance between us was because I'm in Africa. Right now, I'm in Alice. And just to hear all these beautiful stories about him just brings us back to the deep friendship we had. Yet, I was not around because I left Trinidad in 1974.
Wow.
And Ibo, I think I met you. I came to see you a few years ago when I started the drive to put together African music with soca. Do you remember? You're in San Fernando, right?
Yes, I think I remember that. Yes, I remember.
You remember when I came there to see you because I was working with my dear friend Mice, who I worked with in London because I used to write for Hot Chocolate and I used to manage Marvin Gaye and all that. But Charlie and I are very close. And I came to New York sometime, I think, in the late 70s, early 80s. And I was in Charlie's Records. And myself and Explainer, just like you said, a very funny guy, but very spiritual. We just clicked, because I'm also a fun guy and funny guy. And we just clicked. And then he and Charlie named me Mind Bender because I don't know if I was bending minds by the things I would say and how I'd say it. you know, most lyrical people are like that. And I think I'm working out to put on the video. So there we are. I'm actually at the Hilton
Right, let's see you.
huh?
Let's see you. Yes, you want to, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I think I've shed enough tears. So I was in the studio with Charlie. I used to go there to see my mom, and I used to go down to the studio because being a musician myself, only that I was living abroad. Of course, soca is my art form, and although I write and sing different types of music, I'm like him too. I think what people don't know is that in his soul, he's a spiritual Baptist, which is the connection with Africa. And I moved to Africa in the 80s, and I live in Kenya now and also in Nigeria. And I met him there at Charlie's, and we became very solid friends. And one of the things he did for me, I brought my daughter home about 10 years ago. Yeah, she's 22 now. She was 12, yeah, to St. Joseph Convent. And she was doing music as part of, she got a little scholarship to go to UWI to do PAN. I introduced her to PAN, and she wanted to do a project on music, a music project. And I called him and I said, look, Explainer, mind bender here. My daughter wants to do a project in music. And I think the best thing is that she does something in soca and she does something related to you and what you do. Do you know he left home and came to my house? I have a home in Chaguanas. He said, absolutely mind bender, no problem. He left and he came to the house. He said, you know, where you preparing? You know how Explain this. I said, well, the girls will cook for you. So true to form, the girls cooked for him. He came around, let's say 8 o'clock, had dinner. And for the entire night, right up till the next morning, 6 o'clock, sat down with my daughter and did the entire project, which she got a A for, because she was able to interview, talk, and do music with an icon. Now, to me, that is what you call a real friend. This is a man who spent the entire night, didn't sleep. I went back upstairs to sleep, and he stayed downstairs with my daughter and worked through an entire project in record time. So she didn't have to think about researching. He gave her one-to-one experience, expertise, music ability, because she's also a musician. She plays plays piano. And she ended up with getting a PAN scholarship to UWI during a holiday, which I'm always proud of. So when I heard of his passing, wow. That affected me so badly. But out of the love I have for him and the musicianship and my experience in Africa, I said the best I could do for him is to remake his most famous song. Of course, I loved all his music, but here it is, take Lauren, remix it with African influence and other influences, and give him that's my send-off. Real.
Thank you.
So,
thank you so very much. Yes.
To Winston, Mindbender, Henry, explain, because that's what he called me. He never called me by my name, neither Charlie. Both of them call me Mindbender to this day. And this is over, 30 odd years, but because of my my status at the moment, I'm a diplomat. I have other things that I'm doing. I created the brand Swagadon so that only you all are now seeing my face.
Thank you so very much for sharing that anecdote with us and for telling us about your relationship and the remake of Laura and Lorraine.
Yes.
Time.
I hope everybody likes it. I created a video as well. I got African dancers in Mombasa, in Kenya, you know, to reimagine being in the Caribbean and to contribute. And I am actually, let me just tell you, I'm getting back to Kenya tomorrow night. Tuesday morning, I'm actually doing another version where I heard Mark Touch talk about caller answer back. I'm having an answer back of a female singer singing in Swahili. So look out for that. I'm going to be singing, I'm going to be having a new version, which is an additional version for Africa, where the answer back would be a female singer singing in Swahili, so that the Africans can understand, especially East Africa, the meaning of the Lauren trilogy, because his own original, the one I've just done, and the answer back in Swahili, telling the love story of Lauren. So please look out for that.
Okay,
thank you. And it will be an additional video. So it will be a new take on it, how Lauren is behaving, you know, when he's leaving to go back to Trinidad, and she's saying, that yes, she's not going to stay, she's going to come, you know, and she's going to say all these things in Swahili, like Nakupenda, I love you, I'm not going to leave you, I'm coming, etc. So look out for that.
Thank you so very much for sharing that with us. At this time, folks, as Swagadon was just talking about Lauren and the plane and the leaving and all of that, I wanted to still give Ralston Charles the opportunity, because I think that there is to speak at this time to tell us a little bit about the introduction of the plane in terms of the song, Lorraine, and how he was instrumental in that. Mr. Charles, are you able to put on your mic now? Yes, wonderful. Yes, we weren't hearing you before, so could you just give us a sense of working with the Explainer, in particular with the hit Lorraine?
Hey, Charlie.
Hey, man. Good to hear from you. Good to see you on Zoom.
Yeah, boy. It's good to see you. Mike Bender here, boy.
Okay. You don't bend nobody mind anymore. Yes. Well, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Go ahead. We're hearing you loud and clear. Go right ahead. Yes.
Like you asked me to recap what we did with Lorraine. Since so many people is about Lorraine, which I know, like I said before, this guy has so much depths of music that I put before Lorraine, because my thing is about, hey, how could you make a difference to the young generation? How could you move them? What could you bring to change the reality of their mind? And when the guys sing songs like, we cannot go on this way, we got to change the reality of our lives. These are the type of songs that I looked at. When I listen to songs like, you can't cheat, you must not cheat your hero that way. Those are touching songs. But then again, when it touches me so much to know that people go after, write those lyrics to bring the awareness. And if you're true, you're gonna follow. We're gonna follow you. When you look at this guy's repertoire and what he was touching, the topics that he touched, is to make a difference. Yes, he has to go into the party, because if you're gonna be a calypsonian and you're not singing this kind of song to shake and whine, you're gonna be out the loop. So we understood that Explainer had to go there, but really his calling was not about these kind of songs, because I have worked with him over the years, and he wants to show people what the things that has happened to people on the earth should not be the way it is. But you can't save the world, and that is what he was trying to do. When you go after how they was treated as Calypsonian, the kind of money that they make, not me and the monarchy, I know when I did that song, I said, I know you ain't going up there again, you know. They're not going to take you up there, because our people, we don't embrace the truth. And who is in authority, you can't try to show them up. And you should know your people more than I do. you know, and you're not gonna go back up there because you touched the nerves. And by doing that, they're gonna show you, well, hey, if you not you and the monarchy, I'm gonna show you that you're not gonna be involved in the monarchy. But he was not treated the way that he really should be treated. He was the type of guy, you gotta be a certain way when you're an entertainer, the way you entertain the people on and off the stage and how you interact with people. He had that way of life. He had that in him. When you see Explainer, you will want to laugh, and he brings seriousness. He may make a joke, but then he'll turn the page and become serious about life and what you should and shouldn't do, what the young generation should do. I say, Explainer, yes, we're going to do some message, but remember, you gotta be in the carnival too. So I'm sorry to say that we will have to make some of these kind of songs, but I know where your head is at. Coming back to the Lorraine, which people love, make him become a mega calypso star from Lorraine, and how it really started, what I put into it, like you said, you want to hear. I usually, when I go to the studio and put them tracks, I usually come home at night and spend a tremendous amount of time with my tape and see what I can put to enhance those songs, to make it more interesting, not just the lyrics, not just the melody, not just the music, but other things in there that make people say, yes, I like what I hear in there, you know. In England, I remember a guy, when this song been on the chart, this guy came up to me, we were touring in England with Explainer, and he said, Charlie, Mr. Charlie, you know what made me like this song? When I hear the playing, he said, that make me love this song. I always wait to hear that playing. So these things, when I started the track, when I started to mix it, I know I had to fusion some different things to enhance it. So I was hearing, because I make that line. I came up with that line, taxi, taxi, airport, Kennedy. I gave him those lines. And when we use those lines in the intro, of course, I want to put a car. The brakes, when you stop a car that go in high speed, when you hit the brakes, you know you're going to hear that sound from the rubber hitting on the ground. And that's that song I wanted to get to start the song, to bring people into it, let them, because the intro in a song is very important many times. Depends on how you put that intro. It really can make that song interesting to a lot of people. And a fusion in the plane in there, and with the taxi, airport, Kenny, and all that excitement up there, it brings life to some songs when you put those intro in there. I learned that from the American production field. They taught me what you should do and what you shouldn't do in songs to make people aware or make people love the song. You know, and that's some of the things that I did in there. But coming back, moving away from Lorraine, Explainer have so much messages that he had bring out to the world, to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the outer world, that makes him a different to the rest of, or many of the other Calypsonians. And of course, based on the kind of songs that you sing, with our small market that we have, extremely small market, you're not going to make it that big, because the people, to make you big with those kind of songs, you have to have a huge market with millions of people, and we only have a couple of thousand people. And that is why 3/4 of his work went on her. And on Carnival time, when we bring out our music around Carnival, and when you play one song on the album or two songs on the album, if you don't buy that record, you're not going to hear the rest of the music on there. And that's what happened to him. All his great songs are hidden. They are hidden in those albums. And that's why Explainer is not much bigger, and likewise other Calypsonians, not just him, but many other Calypsonians is like that. Their music is being hidden because we only highlight one or two songs.
All right. So thank you very much, Mr. Charles, for sharing that, the engine room story about what went behind making the song a hit in terms of, adding that element of, taxi, Airport Kennedy and the screeching of the plane, etc. That was really something that many persons have spoken about, how this song really starts off. So thanks so very much for that.
By the way, I must bring this in. VAT-19 all of rum use that sample to sell their product, and they don't want to deal with me. They don't want to pay for it. They don't want to talk to me. Don't want to talk to me.
Okay.
And I'm going to go after them because they can't just take up our work and just use it with these mega companies and they'll compensate me for the work that we do. That's my sample. I make that. I put that on that song.
Okay. So thanks so very much for, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Charles, but this segment is almost out of time. We actually want to really get to go to a break, folks. So we are supposed to come back at 11. So Alison, I want to turn it over to you. And then we can take the break and then come back. Alison?
Yeah, so let's just take a 3-minute break and we will resume again. Again, I'm going to pause the recording so y'all can keep up with the old talk and the Lyman, and then we will start back at 11 to ask his question. So Bill, do you want to go ahead and ask your question to everyone that's on the chat, on the Zoom right now?
Yes, hello, good morning to all. I just wanted to see if it were possible to for me to obtain a copy of the recording. I think it was directed to the presenters, since I think it's your presentation, I guess.
Yes, Alison.
Yeah, I think this is a question for the folks who are participating on the panels, on the various panels, to decide, right? This is your story that you're sharing with us, so it's your intellectual property, and so I want to make sure that folks are comfortable with it. What I had planned to do anyway was to, once I get back to my office on Monday, download this to my YouTube channel and then send everyone the link, all of the presenters the link. But I'm very cautious about sharing stuff publicly because, like I say, this is your intellectual property, it's your experiences, and it is up to you to share. It is not up to me, even though this is my Zoom link.
Okay. All right, so thanks for sharing that, Alison, and thanks for your question, Bill Pitti. We understand and we do acknowledge that it is an important question. And so as Alison has indicated, she intends to, it is being recorded, and of course she would put it on her channel, and so perhaps you can get access that way. So it is a recorded session. I want to turn it now.
Okay, much appreciated.
You're very welcome. I want to turn it back now to the session, the first session for today, which is Explainer the Mentor. And this is a critical, session for me, just like the others have been, but now we are going to talk about the next generation. We're going to talk about Explainer the Mentor, and we want to speak to Roderick Chuckley Gordon, Rondell Donowa, key designer styler, and Jumani Cox in particular, in terms of the ways in which Explainer would have had the opportunity to mentor them. And of course, I want to start with key designer styler because he would have had years of working and being mentored by the Explainer prior to these younger Calypsonians. And in particular, I want Keith Styler to speak about the role that Explainer played in being like a father figure to him and literally asking his parents permission to take him to work with him. So key designer Styler, could you tell us a little bit about that story and the fathering role that Explainer would have played with regards to you and your career?
Yes, well, like I said, I met him in the 70s. I met him in the late 70s. And you know, when he approached me and said he wanted to work with me, I mean, this is the Explainer. You know, he had done all these fantastic songs. So you know, you know, he was showing me more about studio work, working in the studio, because I had never done any recordings before. And I went around him and Godwin Boeing. I think I went down to that studio used to be in Mokorapo. He recorded a lot of the songs. Oh, yeah, he recorded a lot of his. I gotta charge my stuff. Yeah. So yeah, he was showing me the ropes in the studio. You know, how to bring out you know, your vibe, you know, sing from your heart, you know, that kind of thing. And then when we came to the States in the early 80s, I was a guy trying to get into the business, and you know, he would encourage me to come to the studio at any, you know, every time they're working, and other artists, because, you know, sometimes we supporting each other. So, you know, people in the studio, and you would say, go and check it out and see how these guys working, you know, and put yourself in it. And that's what I did. I end up becoming a background vocalist on many sessions, you know, and Explainer encouraged me in that, you know. So he was and then he would come to my home, have dinner with us, you know, and you know, any shows that I might have that he might be on, he would make sure that everything is all right with me, you know. So he never wrote. Well, actually, the recording we were supposed to do, the first recording I was supposed to do, he wrote a song for me, but we never got to record it. And a conscious song too, about the history of Trinidad and Tobago. But I never recorded any of his songs that he wrote specifically for me. Later on, he started writing for other people. Well, I think he was writing from before he met me. I think he wrote some songs for some other people in the tents and things like that. He was always writing for people. But my experience with Explainer, it opened up my whole world to calypso music and music on the whole, because he used to listen to a lot of other music too, you know, good music, as he would say. So it was a pleasant experience. I cherish them. You know, I use some of the things that he taught me, you know, every time I'm doing music, calypso music, you know, stay true to it. You know, he loved the marriage of words and music. He was a master at that. You know, he loved that sweet melody, you know, and you know, I miss this guy so much. But my experience with him.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Keith Tyler. In particular, Stagie tells the story of the fact that her father saw you as sort of an adopted son. So, you know, in terms of because this session is dealing with the whole mentorship, tell us a little bit about your younger years and the role that Explainer played in terms of, you know, just chaperoning you and making sure that you were, you know, that the permission was granted from your parents to take you with him when he'd want to, you know, introduce you further into the calypso art form.
Yeah, well, and like I said, in 1983, they had this cultural exchange with Grenada, and Roy Cape, Explainer, and they took me along with them. I just had this song called "Feeling Nice," which did well in the carnival. And
how old were you at that time?
I was like 19, and we went over to Grenada, and yeah, and when we went there, he was like my pops, you know, because he told my mom, you know, it'll be all right. I mean, I was 19 years old already, but you know, he was older than me, and she, you know, my mom was always, I always a baby to my mom. So he would assure my mom, hey, you're gonna be all right, you know. And I had a great time over there, you know. We had we had some really good shows. All the shows was good. And we ran into a little problem with funds, with money. And one of the officials there, one of the government ministers, said that the revolution wasn't to make profit. And I guess some people was on board with him and some people, it was divided. But Explainer went in a meeting with them, talked to them, I think him and Roy Cape. And you know, in the Explainer, he convinced them, you know, that we get paid. And we got paid on that gig. And I think, knowing Explainer, when he went in that room, they couldn't say nay, you know. And otherwise, it would have been an experience where I went on my first gig in a different country and then get paid. So that's one of the things, you know, he makes sure everything I was taken care of and stuff like that. And then, you know, we came back, you know, when Explainer comes to America, you always check to see if I'm okay, you know, always check on me, always. What I'm doing, if I'm writing any new material, what I'm recording, you know, let me hear the stuff, any ideas, you know, he always on that. And he's a guy what was young at heart. I'm surprised that he did collabs with Bungie and I don't know if he probably did something with Marshall too. And Maximus Dan. I'm surprised. He's one of them guys. Young at heart. He always trying to make the youth to bring forth their talent and share it with everybody. So I'm not surprised.
Thanks very much for that, Keith Styler. And now I want to ask Rondell Donowa to jump in and share his experience with the Explainer as a mentor. Rondell?
Hi, thanks, Meagan. Good morning, everyone. Some places it's probably evening or night. Thank you for inviting me. I feel like a small fish in a big pond right now, right? Seeing how, I mean, being in presence of greatness, being in presence of persons who, you know, I would have looked up to from a very young age. So it's really, it really warms my heart to actually be part of this panel and to hear the stories, you know, the various stories and the various perspectives from many people who would have worked with Explainer. Of course, my interaction with Explainer started over a decade ago, right? When I returned from England on my from studies. I would have met him sometime in the latter half, I believe, of 2011, going on to 2012. I always knew Explainer. I always knew who Explainer was, growing up hearing or listening to the famous Lorraine and other type songs. So I would have always known the person Explainer, but being close or being interactive with him was during that time. I remember when I returned and then I decided to audition. I believe it was Kaiso House I auditioned for at that time. That was for 2012 Carnival. And he was part of the panel at that time. And I recall he actually, after the session, that was at Mascam Pub as it then was. And I remember he came up to me and was like, you know what, you have a good voice. I mean, it's a good song, but I feel I want to write for you. And that is where the interaction, that's where the relationship started. He offered to write for me. And I remember the first song that he wrote was my vision. And it brought me back to the fact that even many persons or many presenters before would have spoken about him being a very socially conscious person. I believe President Kimona would have mentioned that he was socially conscious and he brought revolutionary change through song. So because of my personality and because of what he knew of me, he knew that, you know, I was more of a nation building type person. So he would have sung a song about, he would have composed a song as though it was him singing, you know, my vision, and then you know, we want to turn this country around, because he always believed that, you know, Trinidad had so much potential, that the youth have so much potential. He was quiet in demeanor, but he was humble and he was outspoken when he had to be. When you get to know him, and I think as Tyler said, that he would literally call you at any time of the day, any time of the night, he would call you. And, you know, I mean, persons who know me know sometimes it's not always easy to get onto me. And many times he would call me, and then when he don't get onto me, he would call my mother. He's like, well, your son answering his phone, this and the other. And when he do get onto me, you know, he would always start with, good day, can I speak to His Excellency, Mr. Donovan? and you know, it goes to show that he was always in tune with life and with the shift in the paradigm. And particularly, you know, while he was young at heart, I believe he was a youth. He was always a youth. And it transcended into that mentorship, whereas, yes, he started writing for me, he wrote for me for at least 3 years. And one thing he did, he encouraged me to write. You know, he always believed that, you know, because of the fact that many of our older heads are transitioning, it's important for our younger heads to start to write, to start to compose, really to understand, you know, the art of composing. And most times, you know, whereas we would speak about calypso, a lot of times we spoke about life, we spoke about politics, many times politics. He cared about his country. He was very courageous, or he was very, he in terms of my, at that time, political pursuits, every day he would call when I was going for councillor in 2013. Every day he would call, he would give some advice, he would give some tips. He would even tell me in terms of, as a youth, him being involved in youth politics, being involved in youth league from Dr. Eric Williams' time. You know, he was always in tune with everything that happened, whether it's through carnival, whether it's through culture, politics, societal changes. He always spoke about many of his experiences, and I learned a lot from him. You know, it would have times where he would just call just to vent, because he really cared about Calypso. He cared about the organization that is Tuco. He cared about how the art form will be many years from now. And, you know, I mean, I know I believe he died. He died a broken person. And I can speak from my perspective, because knowing where he wanted to see our art form go and knowing where the art form is now, I believe he had so much to give, so much more to give. I mean, as much as, yes, he was an older person, I believe he died too soon. And particularly that week when he passed, you know, he was heavy on my mind, because I didn't speak to him in about a week or two. I didn't speak to him. And I'm saying, I have to call him. And then the day when I decided I'm going to call him, that was the day I heard he passed. You know, and Explainer was a great man. He was selfless. Sometimes he may be going through a lot of things, but he will always encourage you, right? And many times I would have to press him constantly. What is in your mind? What's on your mind? What's on your mind? And then he will start to talk, you know, and it always boils back to him not being happy with where he sees the art form going and the personalities within the art form, you know. But in terms of him as a mentor, in terms of him as my mentor, I can say he cared about the youth, he cared about our generation, he cared about the younger generation, and he would always say he would always prefer to hang out with us, right? I mean, Chucky could attest to that, even Victoria, you know, he would always prefer to hang out with us than hang out with his peers, right? Because he believed that it was us kept him going, right? We were the driving force behind him. you know, and you would see by his style, you know, he only in his latter half you would actually see the gray hair, but before he would never walk with no gray hair. His hair is always black, jet black, right? I would say, wham, daddy, oh, your hair black, so your hair blacker than mine. You know, he would it's only in the latter half I realized that sometimes I saw myself, but like you leave your hair home today. You know, but he was such a great man, and I really cherish our interaction, our closeness. I would sometimes go up and check him when I'm in Port of Spain, before COVID at least, you know. When I'm in Port of Spain for court or whatever, I will go and check him in Mova, you know, take him out for lunch. He would talk, you know, anything he wants us to listen. I said, you just have it. And I miss him. I miss him a lot, you know, and you know, just that harassment sometimes of just calling and saying, His Excellency, how are you today? You know, I miss that voice. He was well spoken. He was not afraid of anyone. I believe that even though everyone knows the name Explainer, I believe that he was not given the respect and recognition I believe he deserved, on par with other type legends, you know. But at the end of the day, he's in our hearts, and yeah, I really appreciate, and I really enjoyed being part of his circle and being mentored by him tremendously. So that is my contribution for now, and I thank you all for joining in and listening, and I really pray and hope that his legacy lives on.
Thanks so very much, Rondell. I really appreciate you sharing those tidbits with us. Now I want to turn over to Roderick Chucky Gordon for him to share with us about Explainer, the mentor. Chucky?
Yes, mornings and afternoon for those of you in other territories. Really appreciate the opportunity, and also to hear such wide-ranging reflections on the man. I mean, he was really close to myself and the family, and my dad in particular. They actually shared the same birth date, November 13th. So, I mean, just on that basis, he used to say, "He's my son, you know." When my dad passed in 2010, he said, your father gave me the mantle to take over from him. So we were really close, and just like Rondell said, he will always call and check up on you in a very joking manner. He will always have some way of introducing himself. He used to call me, "Where's my monarch?" I came into his path in 2007, when I just joined the Kaiso House tent. He was already a frontline and senior member of the cast. And, you know, just as I mentioned, in terms of the closeness to the family, I recognized very early the kind of person he was. Very humorous, very fun-loving, engaging, personable, but he will hold you to account as well. He will reprimand you, and you couldn't take no horrors when Explainer hold on to you. The way he will talk to you, you had no choice but to accept it. And you know, as a close mentor and as a elder Calypsonian, it was really a joy to be able to practice and grow in his presence. You know, as a mentor or two, he would provide constant feedback and emotional support. One of the nice things about him I really loved was the way in which he would share his life experiences, particularly the darker moments. And what I quickly realized in him sharing those things was how much those experiences, those dark moments that people would usually frown upon, whether it's substance or female experiences, whatever it might be, he was very candid. Those things really were the foundation or the cornerstone of his creative work. And I think the experience of that pain and that struggle is what made him so socially conscious, as a lot of people mentioned. And that is an important thing, I think, for many artists. And I say artist because I see him truly as an artist. You know, I always say art and work has to be political, and it has to be focused on improving, I think somebody mentioned it previously, improving human life, reflecting on struggles, reflecting on difficulty. And as Ralston, Mr. Charles mentioned, a lot of his greater works were buried in some of the albums. And that's just a reflection of the way our society and our industry is configured. But that just kind of demonstrates who he really was now. And that's really, really critical and important to me. He shared a lot about his writing processes, a lot about his spiritual views on life. And I was really kind of struggling in my experience with that. What is your persuasion? You know, I was never able to ask him that question directly, but you know, he appeared to be a bit of Baptist, a bit of Orisha. He used to reflect on some Catholic principles at times. So it was almost like he was an eclectic spiritualist of sorts. But in every interaction, you will see that sense of spirituality coming to bear. And that was really a nice experience because it helped me to kind of reflect on myself as an individual and the work in the industry, always view things from a spiritual lens. He was very close to my aunt as well in his latter years. They became riding partners and both buddies of sorts. Stagie could attest to that. She was the pick up and drop off. Anyway, they had to go. Auntie Margaret was there and they were kind of kindred spirits because they were both interested in Bacchanalia. You know, both of them get along very well, very much into Pekong, you know. So Auntie Margaret and him became very close. And by extension, he took a particular interest in me as a developing artist. And, you know, added to that, he was always very encouraging and motivating. He was one of the persons that, you know, you always need to hear it. Hey, you could do it. You have the ability. And he really kind of helped me to understand the ability to sing and perform calypso. He liked my voice. He said, boy, I like how you just perform, you know, continue doing what you're doing. And at the same time, hold you to account if you fall short. As Rondell mentioned, he really encouraged you to write. And when I had written for myself exclusively, I mean, a number of other times I would have collaborated with different artists. But when I had written exclusively for myself, I see that man beaming with a kind of pride, boy. That felt really good. You know, but just to kind of reflect on the artist side of him and what that did for me in terms of the example he set. As I said, you know, he was really interested in transformation and change, and his willingness to go against the grain, willingness to defy the status quo was always reflected in his thoughts and some of the things he said. He was always interested in doing things differently, trying out new ideas, and he was always particularly focused on what Tukwa is doing different. As Rondell mentioned, interested in the organization developing. And my experience as a manager for the first time this year of the 10th was really based on his support and his guidance and his recommendation. He was the person to tell the current president, hey, Chuck is the man, you know, give him opportunity, you know. And that was also based on him always trying to do things differently. And his willingness to do differently also was reflected in his ability to stay relevant in so many decades. His youthful style, willingness to collaborate with different people, his dress, you know, the fact that he thought of himself as a youth and always tried to play the part. It was comical at times to see when he dyed the hair. And he died dripping sometimes, but you know, you can't fight him, you know. Because at the end of the day, that's what he was about, engaging in his youthful side. So in recent years, he always invited me to perform in his concerts. And one of the ongoing things that we did was for me to introduce him with his greatest hit, probably only second to Lauren, which was Rasmas. So I would kind of perform a verse of Rasmas and then introduce him and bring him on. So it was really nice to share those last moments with him and all the other moments that we experienced. He was a great man indeed, a major source of support, responsible for my sense of self in the industry, and long live his legacy. Much love, Explainer, man.
Thanks so
Thank
very
you.
much. Thanks so very much, Roderick Chuck Gordon. And I really appreciate, the way in which you rounded up, the beginning in terms of that interaction with him. Folks, at this time, I actually want to sort of share a little bit of my story before Jumani Cox comes on. Because as Chucky was talking about TUCO, full disclosure, for those of you who may not be aware, I am the Education and Research Officer at TUCO. And one of the interesting things is that I had not had a history per se in the Calypso art form, never having performed, never been in the juniors or performed at the senior competition or anything. But I was interested in the art form because my father really grew me up as being around Calypso and being a lover of Calypso. And one of the things is when I was going up for the position of TUCO Education Research Officer, Stagie and her father, Explainer, came to me and said, we're rooting for you, we're supporting you. And that to me is a source of mentorship, a source of guidance. And at the time I was, definitely a neophyte, not knowing, what these waters I was getting into, uncharted waters in terms of getting into this organization that was responsible for Calypso, acting as a lobby group and, this interest group emanating out of, Parliament and whatnot. And so it is important that I mention this in terms of my interest in this, in terms of being a facilitator. And throughout my time in TUCO, as I continue to be there, whenever I met Explainer, whenever I met his daughter, they would always say, listen, we have your back, we're supporting you, you're doing good work, and we're really pleased about the way in which education and research is going. And I say this to let you all know that this is also part of the continuation of the art form. It's not only the performers that you have to look at, it's not only those who are the writers, but persons who can get in and administrate, and as I said, I was not a part of the fraternity in that sort of performance way, but because I had the support of persons like, Explainer and his daughter, and of course I want to mention Ras Commander and Hamidullah Wahid, and of course Brother Resistance and Shirlene Hendrickson. Those are persons who really supported me being in TUCO and being representative of the Calypso art form. That, as I said earlier today, for those who joined later, this was really an initiative of both Stagie and myself to really put this symposium together. And it's all because of the mentorship that I would have received from the Explainer and the support for the work that I was doing. So I just wanted to take the time to say that. Now I want to shift gears again and go now to Jumani Cox for him to share about his relationship with Explainer, or perhaps to tell us about how Explainer would have had an impact on his life. Jumani?
Yes, greetings everyone. My name is Jumani Cox, also known in the cultural and entertainment industry as Juby. And for me, this in itself is a treat. Just listening to all of the accounts, all of the stories, and all the best wishes in the love of Calypso is a pleasure. And of course, it's a pleasure being asked to contribute as well. So for me, I would have known Explainer and known of his music way before meeting him in person. I remember in 2015, I would have thrown my hat in the ring in the Calypso tent auditions. This time I would have eventually made it. This was my debut. So 2015 auditions for the 2016 season. So it was at the Mass Pub, and Explainer was either on the panel or he was in the audience. But the point I'm making is I performed and the crowd enjoyed the performance. And so, once you get that crowd response and you're auditioning, and persons giving you bonks and congratulating you and stuff, that was a big deal. But what made it even better was Explainer. And again, I wasn't sure if he was on the panel or if he was in the crowd, but nevertheless, he pulled me square and he was like, yeah, man, nice performance, man. I enjoyed that. And I felt like a bite up shilling, to be honest, because one, he is the Explainer, and two, getting that kind of feedback after your performance, and I really just wanted to get into the tent, you know what I mean? So getting that kind of feedback from him was, I felt like a bite up shilling, and it stuck with me. Oh, I came back to the callback, so it had a callback. So the second time I came, he was there as well, and he had a conversation with me very briefly. And the moral of the story was, keep doing what you're doing. I like that style. So at that point, I was still trying to find my footing. I eventually got selected, and all throughout the season, Explainer would have had 1 or 2 conversations with me in the backstage and stuff. And I never really understood why he was speaking with me. And then as I started to find my sound and my style, and by the way, I came from a calypso background through my father, Dennis Cox, and I always had an interest in calypso, performing calypso. He would have written for me, my father that is. And then I started to write my own music and work with some of the legends, including Ivo Joseph, who's also here, who I would have recorded my first song with. And I was still trying to blend the calypso, maintaining the foundation and the storytelling with soca. And while at the tent now, All-Rounder was one of the few artists on the cast that had that blend of calypso and soca. So I was like, I feel this is written, you know? I feel somehow I need to have more conversations with Explainer. And I hesitated from approaching him because, to be honest, I would say it here, it had times, I'm hearing what persons are saying, but it had times where I would look at the Explainer and I'll be like, I don't feel in the mood to talk, you know. I'm not gonna approach this man. And we would have performed on the latter half, at the latter half of the tent, so in the second half, where the groovy soca kind of vibe would have been programmed or curated. And one particular day, or one particular night at the Kaiso house tent, that is, he pulled me square and he was like, you're singing calypso, you're singing soca. So now I hesitated because I'm like, I know this is the calypso tent, but I sing in a kind of crossover soca. I wonder if you're gonna hit me something negative, but I'm not sure. But I say, all right, it's a soca. You say, well, nah, you're not singing a soca. Why are you performing the song like it was a calypso? I stopped. I thought about it for a few seconds, and then I say, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think because the crowd may not necessarily receive my full-blown soca. And he was like, no, if you're singing a soca song, perform your soca song. You have nice lyrics. I like the melodies. You have personality. You're young. You just look good. That's what he's saying. That's why I'm taking in everything that he's saying. So he said, boy, go ahead and perform your song. And from that day, I never thought about holding back from performing at the best of my ability. And I always wanted to perform. I had like performing more since that conversation, because it was like, yes, this is a space where there's calypso music and it's a calypso 10, but here's Explainer telling me, a young man in the industry, boy, go out there and perform those. Don't contemplate. You were selected. Go out there and perform. And I did my thing. And following that season, I continued to watch Explainer on the stage, because I would have watched, I always on YouTube. YouTube is one of my favorite channels. So I always on YouTube, and I would look at previous performances from many of the calypso legends. And Explainer was one of them. And I remember he performed Lauren in a blue suit. It's a blue suit and it was a bell pants. And I was like, I like that style, you know. It's vintage, but it's fresh. And when I looked at his previous videos, he had the dreadlocks, he had the afro, he had a cut like mine. So he always used to blend it up. And I used to wonder, I wonder if this is why he's relevant, boy. Because again, coming back to the calypso tent, I performing in the calypso tent, singing groovy soca, singing a little bit of rap, so a little bit of calypso. But All-Rounder amongst the entire cast is one of the names that my peers know. They know his music, they know the name. And so when I mixed watching him on stage, watching his videos, watching his dress code and everything, I was like, that is why. And he never specifically had a conversation with me where he explained what he did to maintain relevance. But when I really examine his personality, his way of being on and off stage, I was like, that is when it works. So it wasn't really a situation where he directly sat with me at the studio or had multiple conversations with me throughout my career. But certain things that he did definitely played its role in indirectly mentoring me. And the conversations that I cherish are those where he would tell me about my performances in particular and give me 2-3 tips that aided me. And I even went as far as doing Kaisobaby's production would have presented a show on WAC 90.1 FM entitled Trini Music Vibes at 9. Of course, Raskamanda, he's still here. He was also a co-host with me on that particular show. And we would have a segment. So we would have featured artists, young creatives in the space. And there was a particular segment where we had like the Calypso quotation. So we would basically recite lyrics. So we wouldn't sing the song, we would just talk the song. And one particular evening, we quoted Explainer's song. And whilst going through it, although we are doing it for educational and entertainment purposes, while reading it out, I was like, yo, this man telling this story, boy. And that stood with me. That stuck with me. And so I continued to do my writing prior to that, following that. And Explainer I would always reference some of his songs and the way how he delivered them. Coming back to the Calypso tent again, because that is where I spend most time face-to-face with Explainer. When I be backstage or when I finish singing or prior to singing, I would go in front and watch at the performances. And he used to do one particular thing. When he performed, he used to be like, sing the friggin' song. And I used to be like, oh, he could do this. Always. What is man doing? And it was accepted because he did it on numerous occasions. So I was like, oh, this is the person who I used to hesitate from engaging because he had this aura about him. At least if you wasn't sure, I wasn't sure. And I definitely wasn't sure if he was really telling the audience to sing the friggin' song because they wasn't giving him the response, or if that's just part of his performance. And then I realized that he was so confident and his delivery, his songs, his melodies were so infectious that he is just coming out of him. I don't think he meant anything, but he was just saying, sing the friggin' song, and that was just part of his delivery, and that stood out to me as well. Because it's like, you can't go out there, you're a performer, people paying to see you, people coming out to enjoy your music, be entertained and so on. And once you're on that stage, the light shining on you, you go out there and do your thing. And it comes full circle to what he was telling me when I'm performing. Juby, you have a song, you want to present it, go out there and sing the friggin' song. So Explainer would always be a legend. I really appreciate having those intimate conversations with him in the backstage of the Calypso tent and also watching him on stage perform. And one more thing before I close, his relationship with his daughter, Stagie, was something that I admired as well because it was similar to the relationship I had with my father, and where we would be 1 and 2 in the Calypso tent, having that relationship. And the relationship that Stagie and her father had was something that I always used to admire and still admire, especially hearing her speak earlier on there. And just, she have it right. It's almost like if she was in his pocket all the time, even before she was alive. So Stagie, continue to do your thing. And this sessions like this is very much needed, especially because a lot of persons, including myself, may watch an artist and think that, watch how this artist is off stage. He off stage is one person, but on stage is a different person. But it's important to get to know these artists and understand them, and then it would add context to why they would do certain things, why they would perform a certain way, and why they would produce certain songs. So that's just my 2 cents. And again, long live Calypso. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you so very much, Jumani, for that. Stagie, I want to give you the opportunity to speak to other persons who your father may have mentored that we did not get an opportunity to hear about. And so can I turn it over to you to talk about that? Because I know that you said to me that he really mentored a lot of persons. So can you share that with us at this time?
Okay, sure, Meagan. Thanks again.
Okay.
All right, so you'll have to excuse me because I'm really moved by the youth. I'm so sorry. You know, I mean, I've been moved by everybody. Right, just give me a little moment to just compose myself. Right. Mentorship. To me, like my father, in every walk of life, he mentored, even if it's youth, it could be anybody. Once you see like you're going off track, he wasn't ashamed to say, he wasn't afraid to say sorry. And he would always give you guidance in terms of what you knew, because he got that opportunity from the greats, you know, from Stalin, Duke, everybody gave him that. The Lord Kitchener, Sparrow, who took him on the soul store, all right, etc. So he always, you know, use the opportunity once he sees someone, you know, who's actually going off balance, to actually bring them right back on track. Persons we have written for in the past. He wrote for the late King Austin, all right, which is the Car Freezing the Pole. He wrote that, which was his first song before Sociologist took him over. He wrote for Twiggy, that was his first song too, and took her to the tent, you know, and got her in to sing in Sparrow's tent and so on. He actually put up a challenge for her to sing because they didn't want her to match the stage. Because, you know, back then, in order to match the stage, you have to be sure that it was good. And he told them that he's not singing unless she graced the stage, right? He wrote for Victoria Cooper. He wrote a song for her. Well, Randall Donovan, he wrote for him also, whereby he was able to win the South Crown. He wrote for a lot of persons. Or he wrote for Lady Adana. He wrote for Lady Melody. And a couple others. Well, he wrote the song that he and sang on, Ex-Swami. And he wrote with a couple of others who probably may not be able to come to mind. He even wrote for persons abroad, all right, who have won external monarchs of the islands. All right, there's a lot of them. While I would hear, okay, Stadium, we're not sleeping tonight. We have to write. So I know I have to go to my job sleepy because he has to write, and I just have to just listen and just pick up the pen, right? So I would also like to take this opportunity, since they gave me back the opportunity to speak, to thank each and every one of you all, Alison, Meagan, for giving me this opportunity and also the platform. I would also like to thank God for giving me and choosing me as his daughter, right? And giving me that opportunity to walk that journey with him. It was really enjoyable.
Thank you so very much, Stagian, and thank you for, you know, all of the information that you've given us, you know, behind the scenes, you know, that we could not have possibly known, because, you know, in many ways, a lot of persons know him as the presenter, as the performer, but also as his daughter, there would be, you know, that kind of in-depth information that we would never have. Folks, this has come to the end of this session. And I just want to say that in the next session, we're going to have music. All right. So we want to take a break now, and then we're going to move into the next session where we will have Marvin Newton, cultural creative, doing, oh, sorry, my apologies. We made a slight change in the program. We're going to have Keith, designer styler, actually doing some music on guitar, some of Explainer's hits, of course. And then after that, we're going to have Marvin Newton doing an additional round of hits. So that we are just taking a break now. I'm turning it over to Alison.
Yeah, so again, I will make sure that we pause it right now and we can start this next session.
Okay, all right, so folks, welcome back. So as I said before the break, now we're gonna have music. All right, you can't have an explainer symposium or any symposium on music and not have performances. So we're gonna have performances for from some of the presenters. So we now have Keith Designer Styler, who's gonna be performing some of Explainer's hits. I'm not too sure which ones, so I can't really list them out. So I'm gonna allow him to say which ones he decided to do. Keith Designer Styler.
Okay. I Explainer, I have some songs that
Tyler, your video went off.
Yeah, your video has disappeared. Not too sure. We're hearing you, but something happened. Must have touched something.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, you must have touched something. I don't know. Right, there you are. You're back.
Back?
Yes, go ahead.
Then I had some songs, like some of the guys are saying are lost on his albums. And you had these social commentaries and political commentaries and just songs about life in general. And those are some of the songs that I like. This one, I was going through his repertoire and I was thinking about recording this one. It's called To Be Free. Things ain't straight, but you sit down to sit and wait, and you're praying all night, all day, while your roots fading away. You wouldn't fight for the things that you think is right. When I try to make things better, you call me Rasta and Gorilla. But don't you know, you're going to struggle today if you want to be free tomorrow. And don't you know, you got to struggle today if you want to be free tomorrow. And then we have Trinidad has radiance. Trinidad is nice. When come to be heroes, you got to think twice. We got to learn how to bridge the gap, because there are people make us powerful on the map. The way we treat we heroes with scorn, and also wish they were never born. In our country, I realize their heroes are the ones who they idolize. Jamaica bury the late Bob Marley and sing praise to their hero. But in my country, they deliberately push the hero below. When we admire foreign culture, we treat our icons so low. We ought to know that we shouldn't treat a hero so. No, 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 no. We shouldn't treat a hero so. No, 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 no. We shouldn't treat a hero so. They try to destroy Sparrow. We shouldn't treat a hero so. Although he promote Calypso, shouldn't treat a hero so. We forget Maestro, shouldn't treat a hero so. We shouldn't treat a soon. Yeah. Yeah, those are, you know, we all know Lauren. And we know Rasma and the songs that got radio play. But Explainer have a lot of music, man. You should go out and check it because most of it is on YouTube. To the young artist, you want to be a complete artist, you check out the Explainer.
Penny. So Keith Designer Styler, thank you very much for sharing you know, that brief. I see Alicia Aberdeen clapping. Thank you for sharing that brief medley for us. Now what we want to do is we want to turn over to Marvin, youth cultural creative, who's going to take some of the other songs that Keith did not focus on. Marva, take it away.
Thank you, Megan. Just let me know, voice check, if you're hearing properly.
Wonderfully. All is well.
Thank you so much. All right. Hello, everybody. Greetings and blessings. I must start off by saying thank you to you, Megan. I've known you since secondary school at Convent, St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph. And thanks for the opportunity. Thank you to Miss Mason, daughter of the icon that we're celebrating today. And it's so important to do that, to celebrate the people, particularly those who look like us, who have created a wealth of music and lyrics that mean something. I don't want to talk too much, but I have to say that I've never had the privilege nor the honor of meeting Mr. Winston Henry. All right. But I always, the Calypso Monarch, the March Gras was always the focal point in our family. And I can tell you while growing up, the one Calypsonian you can rest assured you're going to see on that stage on the Sunday night was Explainer. The only time I had the opportunity to play behind him, and I have to say that I came into Calypso through theater, through those groundbreaking plays by Royal Gibbons and Zeno Obi Constance and Dr. Phoebe Wilkinson. So my avenue was a little different, but I love it. I love it. I'm passionate about it. I want to say the only time I had the opportunity to play, to accompany Explainer, was at Sedley Joseph's funeral, his farewell at St. Charles R.C. Church. And no rehearsal, and I played Basil behind him to deliver. You all know Basil, of course. It was written by Sedley Joseph and I believe recorded by Explainer. So Stagian sent a list of songs and I'm just going to touch on them, all right? So this is just my offering. I sat down and thinking, question I'm asking, is Pharaoh still existing? I said he poor, resembling an Israelite, not being treated right, enslaved day and night. No, we just can't go on this way. We just can't go on this way. Please deliver us today. We just can't go on this way. Be like the Israelites in we pain. Just can't go on this way. So sad as another Moses again. We just can't go on this way. Say, oh, 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 oh. We just can't go on this way. Oh, 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 oh. Just can't go on this way. Rapping one day with my Rasta brother. Listen to the exact words he said. Everybody hates and scorns the Rasta. Most people believe that he is dread. But if you read scripture, Scrap never saw a baba. But if this scripture is true, some fools are after too. Then we dread, for they messing with the dead. And they dreaded and the dreadlocks, with the ideas in their head shot. La la la, see plenty dreadlocks people here. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Brass mask is a high mask. It's real class. Be playing with Jaja. No man beef, neither no whiskey. Just feel free, everybody. I be for 81 big procession. For the first ever Rasta band. All Rasta brothers and their daughters go beyond the happy manners. No one guaranteed him. Everyone shouting hand in hand, and we singing brass mass is a high mass. It's real class. We playing with Jaja. Nobody like whiskey. Just feel free, everybody. I read. Oh, hey. Where the one is going on, all who upstart to fall back down. This might sound like a fallacy. 79 proved this to me. I'm sure you'll remember all of many were leaders, rulers of oppression, overthrown by the oppressed man. Sing it. Table turned inside from them. All them oppressors falling down. Table turned inside from all them oppressors is the oppressed one. From them on, falling. From them on, falling down.
Round and round, and they're falling down.
There's more. Monday morning, Tuesday evening, Lord, evening races, double losses. Man, I want a divorce. Well, I did married to a horse. Yes, you be a divorce. Monday to Sunday, I played. Briggity, briggity, bitty, 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 ding, ding, ding. Elaine cussing she husband for money wasting in English races. Buying books from all in London, checking the horse information. You know who is Colt and who is Billy, who in the Oaks, who in the Derby. This English racing have him like a fool, showing me only bread in the pool. But Monday morning, Tuesday evening,
horse,
races,
horse,
losses.
horse,
Man, I want a divorce. Better I get married to a horse. Yes, give me a divorce. Monday to Sunday, you're playing horse. In a party one Saturday night, met this Rasta sister looking tight, dressed in khaki and she looked swanky. So I decided that I must rap with she. She said greetings. I say, hey, Larry, let's burn something. To me, you was the vibe, so catch me. But I read that I made the mistake. Touch the locks on she head. She said, don't touch my ras. Don't peel my ras. Your hand to fast. Mr. Run the grass. Oh gosh. All of the brothers love to do peel up. Oh wow. I as a sister don't like to peel up. Don't touch my ras. Boom, pop, buddy. Boom, pop, buddy. Boom, pop, Must end with this one. Taxi, taxi, Airport Kennedy. Lauren, better wake up. Need a jet plane, non-stop. I can't stay in New York City when there is sunshine. I'm in my country. Lions is the place for the jamming, where Carly and Charlie's roots laughing, where everyone happy partying, and I'm freezing in Brooklyn. Darling, now when I are leaving, I got my stuff jamming and feel my beating and woman back row shaking. We won't fight you, baby. You could come and join me inside Calypso. Damn it with some more all stars, all stars, all stars, all stars. There's buzz, there's buzz, there's buzz, there's buzz. Long live Kaiso and long live the music of Explainer. Thank you so much for having me. Give thanks.
Absolutely fantastic, Marvin Newton. Thank you so very much. We had a delightful time, didn't we, folks? Didn't we have a wonderful time? All right, so what I want to do now is open up the session to questions. We have until 1 o'clock, and I just want to give people the opportunity, questions, comments, anecdotes, just the chat and lime, as Alison has been saying. This is the opportunity for people to just interact and free up. All right, so I open it up now. Go ahead.
Meagan, before the questions start, let me just take this opportunity to thank each and everyone who made a positive contribution towards my father's career. All right, and was there with him every step of the journey. I mean, it's more thanks to his fans, thanks to the Lord, everything. All right, because it was a challenge for him, but in the end, it was bittersweet. All right. I heard somebody say that he was kind of sad on his last. He was only sad because of the direction the music was headed, but other than that, he was happy and he was also contented. And he felt to himself that he made his contribution, which is a positive one. His words to me was, Stagie, you better take note, you know, because remember, we had to get his book and you have to take the message out there for me. And I intend to do so. All right. He also told me exactly what it is he wanted me to do with his foundation. So I know I have a lot of work to do and I intend to do it. So yes, his legacy will be living on, but my journey now starts. All right. And I intend to do so. So thanks everyone again on the panel. Marva, all right. You were fantastic designer. Thanks a lot. You all brought back memories. Every single one, Mr. Charlie, Mr. McIntosh, everybody here who made a positive contribution. Marshall, thanks for showing up. It was a blessing. All right, Rondell Donowa, Chucky, Juby, everybody. Mindbender. Actually, Daddy was looking for you, you know, like 2 weeks before he died. He sent me Stagie. I figured you Mindbender. I didn't hear from him in a long while. I was happy to see you too. So maybe you could see if you could get the number on to Meagan so you could pass it on to me. It'd be well appreciated. All right, so in case I forgot anyone, it won't be intentional, but I say thanks. Alison, Meagan, thank you so kindly. All right, South Carolina University. And Daddy was big on education. So I would like you all to, you know, this documented fact and so on, that you all can use it, you know, for, you know, send it out, send out the word there. What? Once it's not for sale. I have no problems with that. Just send out the word. He's pregnant, you would love that. All right. So everybody who has made that positive contribution, I probably may not know everyone. All right. But I say thanks. Thanks again. All right. Blessings and fly high, my king. Thank you.
Thanks so very much, Stagie. And I also want to echo that sentiment and to say thank you for everyone. Those of you who know me well know that I first conceived this idea and it was just in an embryonic stage. And I went to people and I said, would you be interested in doing this with me? It's been a long time in coming. I approached Stagie and she was fully on board. I just want to also mention in particular Marvin Newton, who was there with me from the beginning of this idea. And she has been through with me till the end of it. And I thank Marva for her support and for continuing to work with me when I have these Calypso ideas that I get at all hours of the day and night. And thank you for supporting me and my work, Marva. I want to thank again all of the other panelists who, when I asked, they said immediately, yes. Yes, Meagan, I will be part of this, and I look forward to it, and thank you all for again seeing it through to the end and showing up, participating, and sharing. I really, really appreciate everyone. I want to say thanks for all of those who dropped in. Of course, Marshall Montano, the former president, Carmona, Swagadan, I really appreciate that. Again, I just want to say that I did reach out to Gypsy, who would have worked with him early in his career. And this is important because Explainer started since the 60s, and it's important to note that Gypsy indicated that he would not have been able to be here, but he asked me to bring greetings on his behalf. And so it is important that I echo that sentiment. All right, again, thanks to everyone who chimed in. And I see that there's a hand up. Janice, jump in. Let me hear you.
Thank you, Meagan. So I am not familiar with how things are done here in TNT. So I wonder, with my pet peeve of lazy DJs, I wonder if there is are there listening parties where all disc jockeys that are in the country are invited, as well as journalists, if they're invited to hear songs, because oftentimes, as a former DJ and as a person who loves to dance, I get perturbed when I hear DJs playing music, and I know that there's other things there that they don't play. So are there listening parties where, an artist is bringing out a new album, and so they would invite all the DJs and journalists to come in here so that people can hear the different rhythms? Thank you.
Musicians. Marva, are you there? Can you speak to that? I mean, I want to open it up to persons who are familiar with these types of things. Listening parties. As far as I know, yes, but Marva, go ahead.
Well, see, you will know better than I. I'm not too sure about the listening parties. One thing I remember, and I think Peter Blood was part of this some years ago. It used to be hosted at the Oval, in the Oval car park. A definite back in time party whereby only music from the 60s, 70s, 80s was played. And I'm talking our music. All right, Calypso was shining bright in that. And well, Lauren used to star in that. I can tell you that. And then of course you have, so many others, okay? But that's what I know about. And I think that's a great idea too, not just the listening parties, but where people could really fraternize hearing our music. It's very important. But if anybody else knows of listening parties, like you, Meagan, you can share. But I know that those parties happen at least 3 years, and I would like to see it come back. Maybe I need to do it. I don't know. Yeah?
Maybe you need to do it, Marva. Maybe this is an idea that's germinating as we speak. Janice, to speak specifically to what you mentioned, I have been to a few listening parties, but they generally are accompanied by a sort of launch of someone's album. And so they invite, friends and other fellow artists to listen in and give them comments about new music and that sort of thing. Nigel Campbell, I don't know if you want to speak to anything like that or if you can, but that is what I'm familiar with. Not necessarily the element that you spoke about in terms of the DJs, but in terms of the launch of new music. Yeah, so that's what I'm familiar with.
Well, Meagan and Nigel here, as you said, the idea of a listening party is generally kind of linked to a launch of a record. Not many people are releasing records anymore, right? Unfortunately, I think, because I think Calypso is not going to die per se, but I think an audience is not going to grow if you don't have recordings, beyond the idea of not getting on radio and that kind of stuff, but we must record. So having a listening party as an element of publishing, quote unquote, the music to a wider public, I think is one thing that has to happen. I mean, Marshall is here. Some years ago, Marshall released, had a listening party for his GOAT album. Just recently, Skinny Fabulous did one. And it's a thing that is happening, obviously, with the soca artists and with artists who are releasing soca albums now. It's something that as a tradition, I think, should restart. A Calypso tent is a Calypso tent, but a Calypso tent should evolve to include the idea of music being part, the listening party, sorry, and possibly even a book of lyrics should be part and parcel of how this music sustains and the idea of calypso sustains. For me, a calypso is a lyricist and a performer's art. And if you're not, and listening to this conversation today, we recognize, and we should recognize, and we all should know that Explainer's lyrics were important. They're a tangible part of what made him an icon, right? And if we don't perpetuate that tradition of expanding the understanding of the words, understanding of the music in different forms beyond the calypso tent, or hoping that it gets onto the radio, I think the power of the music is going to continue to subside or to regress as it was. The calypso is not going to die. Let's not fool ourselves about that. But the popularity of the music should also not die. And that is something that I think having a listening party, as Janet has talked about, which I know does exist in other genres, should be part and parcel of the kind of machinery that we utilize to make music grow. Mr. Montano, I see your head popping there. Talk to me.
Yeah, I was just saying that's a good point. And I think something in observing, learning about calypso, there's not as much documentation as possible as should be there. And I think it's very critical, you know, symposiums like this, thanks to Meagan, Stagie, and Alison, everybody who took in this, is important for this to be materials that can be studied for us to learn things. But Nigel, as you were saying, you know, usually artists do their own listening parties, but I think one of the concepts, especially in the light of talking about whether calypso is dying or whatever, I think there are different approaches that could be handled. Like the idea you're talking about is bringing up the point of we could take a certain artist's calypsos and we could sit just like, you know, Designer and Marva was just performing these songs, and we could decode them. We could talk about the lyrics. We could discuss about the songs in very nice forum where, you know, you're recording this on video at a high quality, and you have a small audience, and you have some elders and some producers like Ibo and Frankie who could give insight, and Charlie. I think we could, you know, really start to look back at some of these songs. I don't know if you understand, you know, Jay-Z would do a show called Jay-Z Decoded, and he'll perform a certain album and he'll sit with a small audience and explain his songs. These are some of the things that I plan to do in the future, to tell the stories of what was the real messages in these songs and what was the experience recording it or how it was written. So it could have that different type of event, which I guess from what you're saying is not necessarily waiting to hear it on radio or performing it in the tent, some new format of content that we could know, as you know, Mr. I forget his name, Cox was saying, you know, YouTube, you know, Instagram, Facebook, all these different platforms, you know, calypso should be diving into its history and into reflection on a lot of the great material that was there, you know, and the stories that these things tell. I feel that would be an interesting factor to really start to do at a high standard and high level for archival purposes and for further inspiration for young people.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely.
Meagan, if I don't mind, we're just following up, because I think what you have done, and Alison and Stagie and the whole team that have put this together is a kind of new method, as Marshall kind of suggested, that should be a tradition and should be something that is ongoing. Legacy is one of those things that I cherish as I'm getting older, right? But the harsh reality is a lot of our artists, and certainly a lot of the calypsonians, have no material, no book, no collated material. And a lot of our current calypso music is only heard in a tent. It's never recorded. It's certainly not put anywhere, kind of thing. And this event, I call it an event, is so important. It should be a template going forward for a number of artists, those who have passed, as well as those who are alive and who are at a stage in their lives that they do have another 20 years down the road. The technology allows us to have a Zoom session and that kind of stuff. I think it's so important for our cultural legacy that we do this, right? Not everybody has a coffee table book. That's not a dig, Mr. Montano. But the harsh reality is, it's something that's necessary. I know Black Stallion had a book. I know Valentino had a book. There's only a fictional biography of Kitchener, right? And these are the things that calypso needs to be doing. We have to kind of step up the game in a sense of where we want our cultural legacy to lie. And it may not necessarily lie in the hands of a Ministry of Culture, but it may have to lie in the hands of cultural entrepreneurs, And not every cultural entrepreneur is an artist who wants to dig out somebody's eye. Talk to me,
And
Marshall.
Nigel, let me just say quick, Meagan, sorry. It is very important what you say, because I was having a very long conversation with Stagie maybe yesterday. And I was telling her how important it is to do this book, because she'll have an insight that all of us don't have, and we really need these stories. Our stories have to be told about our greats, and we don't have that, tendency to record things in this industry. I was grateful that I had a mother who was talking. She was collecting every newspaper article, every interview. She was there. So I'm saying the Calypsonian, people expect the Calypsonians to do this, but while the Calypsonian being the artist, they need a family member, they need a friend, they need a Meagan, they need somebody who comes from an educational background, who could ride with them, go with them, see what's going on, and record these things. And there's so many youths who are interested in their phone and their camera and Instagram, and we can reach out to these youths and have these youths shadowing us jobs. Because they would love to cover these stories. And I just feel that we should encourage a lot more of this. And, kudos off to my mom. Her book is really, really something that I think people need to read. I myself enjoy it, but I feel we need these on everybody. So I look forward to the Explainer story.
So if I can just jump in for a minute here, a couple of things. I see Jeffrey Hines, he has his hand up for quite some time. I've also put in the chat the tribute that we did for Blacks a couple months ago. And Jumani was actually part of that program. So y'all can see, and we took a very different approach from what we're doing right now. I did this, and yeah, it's just a different approach. So you'll see how there are different ways you can do this, right? One of the things I want to say as well, and for those of you who don't know, I write extensively about Calypso and various aspects of the carnival arts, not just Calypso. But as an academician who is not a musician, who only last year for the first time made her first baby doll costume, I want to kind of remind everybody in this space right now that one of the things that I think we have to embrace and value is that the art form that we are engaged with right now really encourages different perspectives and different approaches and different voices. Okay, so, and full disclosure, as someone who writes about this, there is an exploitative extraction that we are in academia, we take from, right? We take, and we get rewarded for it because we get our publications, we get our promotions, we get things like that, right? And so what I want to say is just be on guard, right? Because what I write and what gets published in a journal should not be the be all and end all, right? Every time someone listens to music, every time someone sees a piece of art, they're bringing their own experiences to it. And so everything gets reinterpreted through a new lens. And one person can interpret something one way when they're 28, and when they're 88, their views change completely because their life experience has changed. So we have to, what I want to encourage us to do is have continuous dialogue rather than trying to say that this is X, right? Because that's the problem with, as far as I see it, with having, with the kind of education that we have in the West, right? Something is put into a canon, right? That is the book, that is the standard, right? Well, in non-Western cultures, everybody gets to share in that voice, everybody's point of view, right? That's the thing about the griot, right? So we have to, I think we have to hold on to that, even as we do this kind of formalized presentation. So just let's just be cautious about that. That's my 2 cents.
And Alison, I just want to echo what you're saying, because I too, like you, as you well know, I have a lot of publications and I write principally on Calypso. I have written on soca music, but I write on Calypso extensively. And you talk about what is published, but I also do a lot of conferencing. And when I go all across the world to speak to various publics about the Calypso art form, I am met with differing perspectives about what people think Calypso is. And depending on the age, depending on the exposure that people have had to Calypso, there's a different response that I get. And so, yes, it is important to have, in addition to the academic work, in addition to the conversations that I have with non-Trinidadians, non-Caribbean people about Calypso, it is important also to center these kinds of experiences about our griots, about our artists within a space where we can tap into how do we feel? What have they meant to us? What has been their life experience? How has that had an impact on the art form? And where is the art form going next? So I really am happy to have been part of this, to have, spearheaded this in many ways. And I'm really glad that, the effort has been seen as so important to the art form. Jeffrey Hines, I want to ask you, okay. See, Jeffrey wants to ask a question. I don't want to.
Afterwards, may I ask something, please?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Lady. Oh, thank you, moderator. Thank you, moderators.
Go ahead.
Can I just say, first of all, it's a real pleasure to have been able to attend this symposium here on Explainer, and I thank that person who shared the link with me, so I signed up straight away. I'd like to say on behalf of the Association of British Calypsonians, how appreciative we were and are. We had the pleasure of having Mr. Henry in our 10th season in the year 2004. And it went so well that we had him back again in 2005. And then we had him for the season of 2012. That was the last time we had him over in the UK for our 10th season. And a lot of the things that has been said today, I would echo exceptionally, because I didn't have a lot to do with him. In fact, I was in awe of him when we first met, when he first came over. But I remember in 2005, I did a song entitled "Look in the Mirror," and I was very surprised when he called me aside and talked to me about this song. And he was very complimentary to me about this song, and it boosted my confidence a lot. But apart from that, it's a shame that so many of these great icons are going one by one, and everything that has been said earlier about we carry on the legacy and record what we need to record and keep the legacy of this great art form going is so important. And I thank you all for putting this symposium together, and it's been a real pleasure to be part of it. And thank you all very much.
You're very welcome, Mr. Hines. I really appreciate your comments. Marva?
Yes, Meagan, just allow me to go back to Janice's question. When I answered, I allowed you to speak about listening parties, but I thought you were speaking specifically about listening parties for Calypso, but yes, we do have listening parties, and incidentally, I organized one recently for one of Trinidad's foremost jazz guitarists. And I'm saying that because Terran Shaw is a musician par excellence who understands our music and believes in it. And, he has hosted shows with Stalin entitled Love Your Own, which was a calypso by Stalin. But I'm also raising this in terms of the point Nigel spoke to about legacy. One of the ways is when artists who practice predominantly in another genre take your music and do a different spin on it. And on Terry's second album, he has a version of Lauren. And it's really, I would like to think that Mr. Henry is pleased with it because it's a really good version. And when an artist like Shaw is sitting to think, what music am I going to arrange and do a different take on, you know, it's a process. So Terry has done this, you know. I'm not saying it was showcased at the recent listening party. I'm simply saying that he has done Lauren and many other songs as well. So it's about legacy, it's about keeping the music going, whether it's through publications and conferences like these, but the music, it tends to grab a different audience, and hopefully they go and do the research and find out who are the people behind it when they hear it. I just want to offer that. Thank you.
Thanks so very much, Marva. Janice?
Thank you, Meagan. Thank you, Marva, for coming back with that. When I asked about listening parties and hearing the different responses, and it's raining in Santa Cruz. Okay, so I hope you could hear me. I heard a lot of different marketing strategies because, for one thing, the point that was raised about documenting the lyrics, my mom had spoken about that ages ago, because when our Calypsonians wrote music or write music, they talk about world events. When the tourist comes to the tent during carnival time, they don't necessarily understand our accents, to understand the lyrics. So sometimes the things that we would laugh at goes beyond them unless someone explains the calypso to them. So from that perspective, it would be great. Once tents open, they know who their Calypsonians are. Yes, they should have a book that has all the lyrics of all their Calypsonians with a background of who the Calypsonian is, et cetera, Not necessarily the sheet music, because we don't want them to go and play the music. They could always buy that, but right? But in this way, they could understand and follow along with what's going on. And this is something that they can take with them, right? So that's one perspective. Meagan, you and I have talked about this music in school. Right? Why is calypso being taught in school? Okay?
Right. And you know this struggle. I can share with the audience what I have done thus far. And thanks to that, Janice, one of the things I've done as the TUCO Education and Research Officer is made an inroad into secondary schools in Trinidad and Tobago. I would approach principals, I would approach the VAPA teachers, which is the visual performing arts teachers, to literally go into the schools. This was a pre-COVID project, just so you have a sense of the timeline. And I would go in and I would introduce the students by way of PowerPoint presentations, having listening parties where we would listen to the music. We would do something akin to what Marshall was speaking about earlier, dissect a particular artist and speak about what is this artist singing about. And I've been doing this for a number of years. One of the challenges that I've had is willing principals, willing teachers, willing parent-teachers organizations. What do I mean? Sometimes in Trinidad and Tobago, there are persons who feel within the educational sector that they do not want their children to be exposed to the calypso art form. And so I've had to go into schools where I was allowed to, all right, and where they facilitated my entry. So Janice, just to get back to why is calypso not part of the curriculum? As an executive council, TUCO would have met with ministers of education in the past to try to get calypso to be part of the curricula specifically, not as an option, if a teacher decides, because that is there, so that they could use some literary device, so that is there, but it means it's not mandatory. So that if a teacher is anti-calypso, if a teacher doesn't see the value in calypso, they don't introduce the children to calypso. What we wanted was it to be part and parcel of the curriculum. And so to let everyone know it's a struggle. The struggle continues, but until such time, I have been going into the schools. Ras Commander is on, Hamidullah Wahid is on. They are from the South Central Zone of Tuko, and they also, along with other persons from other zones, have been going into the schools. I don't know, I think I saw Hamidullah Wahid's hand up. I don't know if he wants to still say something, but this has been part of the struggle. We've literally had to go in with permission, of course, from the ministry, but it all depends on the Parent Teachers Association and the principals and the teachers, just so that you have a sense of why and what's happening with Calypso and the school curriculum. Nigel, I see you shaking your head. Reality check. Hamidullah Wahid, are you there? I don't know if you want to say anything. Ras Commander, Steve Pascal, I see you there. Do you want to say anything?
Dawn's hand is up. Dawn Newton's.
Yes, I know. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I was unable to take in the entire program. You guys hearing me, right?
Loud and clear, Steve Pascal.
Lovely. First, I must say on behalf of my zone, Tuko South Central, and by extension, the National Executive, I want to commend you, Meagan Sylvester, and whoever team that you're working with. I see your best friend on, Marvin Newton. It's always a pleasure to see you guys. You know, and strange enough, the photograph juxtapose you guys one next to each other, so that had to be a uniqueness. You know, I really welcome this program today. So much knowledge was, was told here today from different people. I mean, I capture the great Macintosh, Franklin, well, everybody knows him as Frankie, but today I get to find out it's Franklin. You know, he really delivered something nice. I was happy to hear President Kamona as well. You know, and I had to slip out because, as everybody know, I'm a caregiver, so I'm taking care of the queen. I had to go and get certain things, and I'm sorry to miss it, but I hope that this could be presented either on a flash drive or CD, some kind of thing for future, you know, that we can have it, at least in Tuko, you know, so that people could be free to really go back and visit this. This is something very educational, and we welcome it. I'm sorry that Hami is one of the fellas that I would like to hear speak. I'm sorry that he not
no, his hand is up. So
his hand is up.
So yes, so I'll get him.
Once Hami hand is up, I clean up the line one time.
All right. Hamidullah, I know your hand was up before Dawn Newton, so just go ahead quickly and then we'll get to Dawn Newton. Cooper. Hami, are you there? Okay. Oh, he's having a problem with his mic. Dawn, you want to go ahead until? Go ahead.
Yes. Hi, good morning, everybody. I can't turn on my video now, but I would like to speak because as a teacher in the education system for the past 30+ years, I have lived and I am living this struggle of getting to convince teachers and the principals of the importance of using the Calypso in our day-to-day curriculum, not according to Meagan said, as just you do it by the way on the side. No, it has to be a part of. And I really try with this every day. I too, like Marshall, I am doing the master's in the Carnival Studies, and we are trying to see how we can get the Calypso in the schools and convince the principals and the teachers. It is important, it is our own. Thank you very much, Meagan, and thank you for this great symposium.
You're welcome, Dawn. You're welcome. And I just want to reiterate the Parent Teachers Association as well, because remember, parents are part of the sort of tripartite arrangement. Parents then say to their principals, we do not want you to teach our children any Calypso, don't bring anybody in, etc. So they are also a little cog in the wheel, just to make sure that we round that off and you all understand. It's not just the teachers and the principals. It's unfortunate, but we're doing the work still. Hamidullah, are you there?
Yes, Meagan, I'm here. You hear me?
Yes, I am. Go ahead.
Okay, I want first of all say thank you very much. And on behalf, once my chairman make that kind of remark and thing, and Kaisobaby to say, who going behind that? However,
I added my 2 cents to tell you how much I endorse this program tremendously. Marvin Newton is one of the people I follow very closely, who's very passionate about the art form. Thank her. Also, Miss Lawrence, I think it is, the fashion consultant, and all the other people who made this show possible. Thank you very, very much. For I, as a practicing artist, on behalf of my organization, TUCO, we want to commend you and know that we stand firmly behind you to ensure Kaiso go where it's supposed to be. Thanks again, Meagan. Thank you tremendously for a wonderful program. Okay?
Thanks so very much, Amadullah.
Thank you.
Mr. McIntosh, I wanted to give you an opportunity to just share with us more about the work that you've done in Calypso, because we recognize your greatness and you are here with us. And so we want to give you an opportunity to share. Talk to us about what your experience has been getting Calypso to the masses.
First, with reference to previous speaker regarding Franklin and Frankie, just call me Frankie, because I always tell the story. The only person who really called me Franklin was my mom when I was going to get a cocktail for doing something wrong. Franklin, come here. Otherwise, it was always Frankie, you know. Yeah, so anyway, I would like to, you know, also agree with Mr. Campbell, who said something to the fact that Calypso is forever. Calypso will always be. The reason is that to me, Calypso, I mean, it's more than just a song, someone singing, you know, a song in the Calypso genre. It's like a culture, you know, it's a way of life. Wait, can't get that. Sorry. Yeah. Also, with reference to Terry Shaw's new release, whatever Terry Shaw does, whatever he records, check it out. Excellent musician, one, you know, who has my greatest respect. Yeah, so I've worked with so many artists, Duke, Calypso Rose, I did something with Sparrow, did an album for Kitchener. I mean, I could go on and on, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, at some point, you know, at school, I was at a crossroads. I mean, after, you know, doing my graduate work, should I go on further, you know, do a doctorate or whatever? But then it occurred to me that I could make a more positive contribution doing, well, what I did, what I'm still doing. I mean, working with Calypsonians, working with within the genre and trying to create something new, I mean, add something new to the pool of music, you know, rather than just concentrate on a specific area where I could probably go into a professor teaching the same course.
You ready? You ready?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm listening still, yes.
Oh, I saw a name flashing the screen. I thought you wanted to make a comment.
No, go ahead, Mr.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, the only thing I would probably add, Charlie made a point at the send-off for Explainer at the Savannah. It's just the fact that, you know, names like Explainer, Sparrow, Kitchener, these are icons in their own right. But the names represent an essential supporting cast. You know, the producer, the arranger, the musicians, studio engineer, you know. So I would strongly recommend that, you know, record buyers read the liner notes and to see what really goes into the final product, you know, what Explainer really stands for beyond what we might know of him, like a person, what his music stands for. And I'm sure right now he's someplace, you know, probably doing music with Frankie Francis and Virtual Minutes. And so I see even a master musician whom I greatly respect to. Explainer was always in good hands coming to music. Godwin Bowen, I think he did some work with Lesson, excellent arranger. I sometimes say Ibu or Ibu, which is right. Yeah, so compliments to you, my brother. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McIntosh. And I don't know, as we come to the close, we're 1 minute away from 1 o'clock. Before I turn it over to Alison, I don't know if anybody else wants to have any parting comments.
I would just like to say, shout out to the Bishop Anstey High School Steel Orchestra with their fantastic rendition of Lorraine or Lauren.
Thanks, Janet. Thank you so very much. Yes, Alicia, we see you, we see you, we see you. Bishop Salom. All right, okay. All righty. So everyone, we have come to the close of today's session. Again, I want to thank each and every one of you, and firstly, the presenters, thank you for saying yes. Thank you for saying yes. I really appreciate that. And of course, all of the persons who I would have solicited, and I said, register, go register. It's good to see you all here today, and thank you for making it to the end. And I really appreciate that everybody really contributed and enjoyed the session. So that's it from me. Thanks a lot, and look out for more, because this is the first and we're going to do more. All righty.
Meagan, you're amazing. You're amazing. I'm huge on legacy, and what you're doing is extremely important. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to say that real quick.
Okay. Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you, Meagan, for inviting me. I well enjoyed this, although I'm at work.
Thank you, Sharon. Thanks, Nigel. All right. Alison, over to you.
Okay, so I'm gonna once again, I'm gonna pause the recording, or stop the recording, in fact.